Hello everyone, and welcome to the Ben 10 What Ifs. So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Ben 10 wielded the Primal Dino spirit, a force older de. End time, Ben 10 x Kai Green x Kira Ford Power Rangers Dino Thunder. But before we start, I just want to remind you to please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button if you enjoy my content. Let's start the story. Chapter 1. Resonance Point. A blur of crystalline green flashed through the midnight sky over Bellwood, banking sharply between skyscrapers. Ben Tennyson, transformed into Jetray, corkscrewed through the narrow gap between construction cranes, his wings barely missing the steel cables. 3 drone-like crafts followed, their violet energy weapons scorching the air where he'd been milliseconds before. "You guys really need to work on your aim," Ben called out, his voice carrying the characteristic echo of his amphibian form. "Or maybe just give up." "I'm voting for option 2. The largest drone released a barrage of energy nets designed to disrupt his neurological system. Ben tucked his wings and dropped 30 feet instantaneously, the trap deploying harmlessly above him. He'd seen that particular technology during a mission with Rook 3 years earlier, cataloged it, remembered it. "Tech-add-in retrieval units," Ben muttered, scanning their configuration. "Custom job. Someone's invested serious tech in grabbing the Omnitrix tonight." His mind calculated trajectories, computing environmental advantages while the city blurred beneath him. The downtown shopping district offered too many civilians despite the late hour. The industrial zone provided cover but limited maneuverability. The abandoned subway tunnels, however. Ben banked hard right, accelerating toward the demolished Carson Street station. His neurological connection with the Omnitrix had strengthened over the years, less like wearing a device and more like extending his consciousness. He felt the familiar energy pulse warning of a timeout, but calculated he had approximately 47 seconds remaining. Enough. The lead drone clipped his wing as he dove into the tunnel entrance, sending him spinning. Pain flared, but Ben converted the momentum into a controlled spiral, using the tunnel walls to ricochet deeper into the darkness. The drones followed, their bulky frames scraping against the narrow passage. 29 seconds, he whispered, counting down his transformation. The tunnel widened into an abandoned platform, decades of dust-coating crumbled concrete. Ben shot upward, clinging to the ceiling in darkness as the drones spread out, scanning methodically. Their search patterns were predictable, a rookie mistake. He waited until the lead unit passed directly beneath him before releasing his hold. Surprise. The impact crushed the drone's sensor array. Ben immediately rolled, dodging retaliatory fire from the remaining units. The Omnitrix flashed warning red against his chest. 15 seconds. He launched himself toward the second drone, wings extended to maximum span. At the last possible moment, he twisted, using his tail to slice through its propulsion system before kicking off its falling chassis toward the final unit. The third drone deployed a containment field, a shimmering bubble of energy designed to trap and transport. Ben smiled. "Perfect. And time's up," he said as the Omnitrix released its distinctive beep. The green flash of detransformation occurred precisely as he entered the containment field. The drone's systems, calibrated for amphibian physiology, failed to compensate for the sudden change to human mass and momentum. The bubble shattered, releasing a feedback pulse that froze the drone's systems. Ben landed in a controlled roll, his black and green jacket gathering tunnel dust as he came up in a defensive stance. Years of combat had honed his human form almost as much as his alien transformations. He approached the disabled drone cautiously, green eyes sharp in the dimness. "Let's see who sent you," he murmured, prying open the control panel with practiced movements. The circuitry configuration confirmed his suspicions. Specialized tech-add-in units, but the control module bore an unexpected signature. Ancient writing that didn't match any species in the Omnitrix database scrolled across the internal display. As Ben touched the symbols, the Omnitrix suddenly sparked, its traditional green glow flickering to amber for a brief moment. "What the?" Ben jerked his hand back as unfamiliar data streams scrolled across the Omnitrix interface. Unknown DNA sequence detected. Catalog parameters exceeded. Temporal variance. 65.5 million years. Pain lanced through Ben's arm as the Omnitrix recalibrated, its holographic display projecting unfamiliar silhouettes, massive, reptilian forms that resembled no alien species he recognized. The symbols pulsed with increasing frequency before the display abruptly returned to normal. Okay, that's definitely new, Ben whispered, rubbing his wrist where the Omnitrix had heated against his skin. Better get this to Blukak and Dryba. The communicator in his pocket buzzed. Gwen's voice came through, tense with concern. Ben, something weird just happened with my mana tracking. Your energy signature changed. Are you okay? I'm fine, he replied, staring at the Omnitrix's now normal display. But I think we've got a situation brewing. The Omnitrix just picked up DNA it can't identify. And get this, it's not extraterrestrial. According to the temporal marker, it's from Earth's prehistoric past. That's impossible, Gwen said. The Omnitrix already contains all evolutionary paths from Earth. Ben's fingers traced the symbols on the damaged drone. Apparently not all of them. 3,000 miles away, amber stage lights bathed Kira Ford in golden radiance as her fingers danced across guitar strings. The final chord of "Patiently" reverberated through the packed venue, drawing thunderous applause from the crowd. Perspiration beaded on her forehead, triumph and exhaustion mingling as she stepped back from the microphone. "Thank you, Chicago," she called out, her voice carrying the distinctive husky quality that had become her trademark. "You've been amazing." The yellow Dino gem rested against her chest on a simple leaf. Cord. A fashion statement to most observers, but a connection to powers and responsibilities few could comprehend. After years of dormancy following Mesogog's defeat, she'd grown accustomed to its quiet presence. Until tonight, as she lifted her hand to wave to the crowd, a familiar warmth pulsed from the gem. Not the gentle resonance she occasionally felt, but a surge of primal energy that ancient instincts firing through her nervous system. Her vision blurred momentarily, overlaid with flashes of prehistoric landscapes and unfamiliar constellations. Kira staggered slightly, catching herself on the microphone stand. Her band continued playing the outro, covering her momentary lapse. The gem pulsed again, stronger, and somewhere deep in her consciousness, she felt a roar, ancient, powerful, and unmistakably awakening. When she looked up, the crowd had transformed in her perception. Energy signatures surrounded each person, but among them, a distinct pattern emerged, trails of amber light stretching toward the west, converging toward some distant point. 2 songs left, her drummer whispered as he passed behind her. Kira nodded mechanically, forcing herself back into performer mode. Right, let's hit them with Revolution. The band launched into the driving beat of her newest single, but Kira's mind raced elsewhere. After years of silence, why was her Dino gem activating now? And what was it trying to show her? The gem flared again, sending another vision, crystal clear this time. A strange watch-like device with an hourglass symbol, surrounded by primitive cave paintings of dinosaurs. The images shouldn't have meant anything to her, and yet they resonated with absolute certainty. She needed to contact Dr. Oliver. Something was awakening to their Dino powers, but far more ancient. As the song reached its crescendo, Kira felt the gem pulling her consciousness westward, toward some inevitable convergence. Whatever was happening, she knew with bone-deep certainty that she needed to be part of it. Humid air clung to Kai Green's skin as she carefully brushed centuries of mineral deposits from the cave wall. The remote location in Indonesia's Sulawesi highlands had proven more challenging to reach than her university sponsors had indicated, but the findings were proving worth every leech-infested mile of jungle. Dr. Green called her research assistant, Levin, from deeper in the cavern. "You need to see this immediately." Kai straightened, wincing as her back protested after hours of careful excavation. At 24, she'd already established herself as a rising authority on anomalous archaeological findings, specifically, evidence of extraterrestrial influence on ancient human civilizations. It had begun as a childhood fascination after her encounters with Ben Tennyson and aliens, eventually becoming her academic passion. "This better be good," she said, picking her way carefully across the uneven cavern floor. "I was making progress with the Tarajan symbols." Levin's flashlight illuminated a section of wall they hadn't previously documented. Unlike the weathered paintings throughout the rest of the cave system, these images appeared almost pristine. As though recently created. Kai's breath caught as she recognized the unmistakable hourglass symbol of the Omnitrix rendered in dark ochre, surrounded by intricately detailed dinosaurs, species that shouldn't have existed alongside early humans. That's impossible, she whispered, her fingers hovering above the painting without touching it. These caves date to approximately 40,000 years ago. The Omnitrix didn't exist then. What's an Omnitrix? Levin asked, adjusting his glasses. Kai ignored the question, focused on the details of the painting. The Centra L image showed a human figure with one arm transformed, not into the typical animal spirits common in prehistoric art, but into what appeared to be a hybrid of human and dinosaur. The pigment composition seems identical to the surrounding artwork, Levin continued, consulting his tablet. Carbon dating would suggest these were painted contemporaneously with the rest of the cave system. That cannot be right, Kai insisted, pulling specialized scanning equipment from her pack. The device, a modified version of standard archaeological tools, incorporated technology she'd acquired through contacts from her grandfather's plumber connections. The scanner hummed softly as it analyzed the molecular structure of the pigments. When the results appeared, Kai frowned. The chemical composition matches other paintings in the cave, she confirmed, but there's something else, an energy signature embedded in the pigments themselves. It's faint, but definitely not natural. As if responding to her words, the central Omnitrix symbol in the painting began to glow with subtle amber light. Kai stepped back instinctively, her hand reaching for the ceremonial knife she always carried, a habit from encounters with the supernatural that her academic colleagues would have ridiculed. Dr. Green, Levin's voice held growing concern. The glow intensified, and within the illuminated painting, the dinosaur figures seemed to shift slightly, as though straining against the confines of the cave wall. A low vibration thrummed through the stone, dislodging dust from the ceiling. We need to leave, Kai said firmly, already packing her equipment. Now, but the readings will continue after we're at a safe distance, she interrupted. Something's activating these paintings, and I've seen a new extraterrestrial phenomena to know we don't want to be here when it fully powers up. As they hastily gathered their gear, Kai's satellite phone chimed with an incoming message. The screen display read a simple text from a number she hadn't seen in years. Omnitrix malfunctioning. Prehistoric DNA sequences detected. Might relate to your research, Ben. Kai stared at the message, then back at the glowing painting. The universe, it seemed, had a peculiar sense of timing. Change of plans, she told Levin. We're not just retreating to the base camp. We need to get to Bellwood, California. Immediately. Ben stood in plumber headquarters beneath Bellwood, watching as Blukik and Dryba argued over the damaged drone. The two Galvan technicians had been examining the device and the Omnitrix for over an hour. Their typical bickering intensifying with each new discovery. It's clearly a temporal anomaly, Dryba insisted, adjusting a microscopic component on his analysis device. It's not temporal, it's dimensional. Blukik countered. The quantum signature indicates parallel universal bleed-through. That's preposterous. The wavelength patterns clearly show. Guys, Ben interrupted, his patience wearing thin. Less arguing, more explaining. What's happening to the Omnitrix, and what's with the dinosaur DNA? The Galvans exchanged looks before Dryba cleared his throat. Well, technically, it's not dinosaur DNA. Not exactly. It's dinosaur adjacent, Blukik added unhelpfully. Ben pinched the bridge of his nose. Dinosaur adjacent. What does that even mean? The DNA sequences appearing in the Omnitrix database contain reptilian markers consistent with Earth's Mesozoic era, Dryba explained, but they're spliced with something else, something not in any known evolutionary chain. Like some one-engineered hybrid dinosaur species? Ben asked. More like something was engineering the dinosaurs themselves, Blukik corrected. From the genetic markers, these sequences predate Earth's dinosaurs but contain their fundamental building blocks. Ben frowned, processing this information. So we're talking about the ancestors of dinosaurs. Something that came before them. Not ancestors, Dryba said, his tone unusually serious. More like architects. The main communication screen activated, displaying Magister Tennyson's concerned face. Ben, we're detecting unusual energy spikes worldwide that match the signature from your Omnitrix. Most concerning is a massive convergence building in the Mojave Desert. Whatever's happening, it's accelerating. I'm on it, Ben replied. Already moving toward the exit. Send coordinates to the Rust Bucket 3. And Grandpa, you might want to put in a call to Kai Green. She texted earlier about cave paintings showing the Omnitrix with dinosaurs. Could be connected. Already done, Max confirmed. She's en route from Indonesia. And Ben, there's something else. The energy signature we're detecting shares characteristics with documented events from another Earth, specifically, incidents involving entities called Power Rangers, from universe designation BR52. Ben paused. Another universe is leaking into ours. It appears so. And if our intelligence is correct, their world has experience with dinosaur-based powers. Be careful, Ben. We don't know what's causing these universes to intersect. As the screen went dark, Ben glanced at the Omnitrix. Its familiar green glow had stabilized, but something felt different about its energy, wilder, more primal than the precise technological signature he'd grown accustomed to. Time to find some answers, he murmured. The private jet touched down at Barstow Daggett County Airport just after sunset. Kira Ford slipped on sunglasses despite the fading light, partly for disguise. Partly because her Dino-enhanced vision had become painfully sensitive to even minimal illumination. The gem at her throat pulsed continuously now, drawing her toward something in the desert with undeniable urgency. Her attempts to contact Dr. Tommy Oliver had proven fruitless. His wife Haley had reported that he'd departed suddenly 3 days earlier after experiencing similar phenomena with his Dino gem. The other Rangers were likewise unreachable. Ms. Ford, the pilot approached Koshawested is waiting, but I must advise against driving into the desert alone at night. The Weather Service is reporting unusual electromagnetic activity in the region. I'll be fine, Kira assured him, shouldering her guitar case. She'd brought it instinctively, knowing her terror scream might be needed before this mystery resolved. I grew up in California. I know the desert. Not this desert, a voice in her mind corrected. Not this Earth. The thought came unbidden but with startling clarity. Since boarding the flight in Chicago, Kira had been experiencing increasing awareness that something fundamental had shifted in reality itself. The sky looked fractional, different, stars positioned slightly off from where they should be. The air carried molecular differences her enhanced senses detected but couldn't identify. The rental car was nondescript, exactly what she'd requested. As Kira settled behind the wheel, she removed the gem from around her neck and placed it on the dashboard. It immediately oriented itself like a compass, pointing unerringly southwest. All right, she muttered, starting the engine. Let's find out what's calling us. The desert landscape blurred past as Kira followed deserted highways, then progressively smaller roads, finally transitioning to unmarked desert tracks that challenged even the SUV's capabilities. The gem's glow intensified with each mile, bathing the vehicle's interior in pulsing amber light. 2 hours into her journey, the headlights illuminated a battered sign half buried in sand. Restricted area, U.S. Government facility. No trespassing. Beyond the sign, a cluster of abandoned buildings hunched against the landscape, some kind of decommissioned research facility. The gem flared brilliantly, nearly blinding her. Kira killed the engine and lights, letting her eyes adjust to the darkness. The facility was not entirely abandoned after all. Lights moved among the buildings, flashlights, she realized, carried by figures in environmental suits. As she watched, the ground beneath the central building began to glow with the same amber energy emanating from her gem. The earth itself seemed to be awakening. Movement to her right caught her attention. A sleek green and black aircraft descended silently, touching down behind a nearby ridge. Moments later, a figure emerged, a young man in a green jacket, a strange watch-like device on his wrist glowing with the same energy signature as her gem. The Omnitrix from her visions. Kira slipped from the vehicle, moving with the silent precision that years of Ranger training had instilled. Whatever was happening, she wasn't the only one drawn to this convergence point. The Rust Bucket III's sensors mapped the abandoned facility as Ben approached on foot. His years of experience had taught him that dramatic entrances rarely yielded as much information as careful reconnaissance. The Omnitrix continued its strange behavior, cycling through unfamiliar silhouettes before returning to his standard roster of transformations. Thermal Eye. Maging shows 12 figures in the main complex, Ben sub-vocalized to his communicator, and something massive underground. Core temperature reading exceeds anything geological. Proceed with caution, Max replied through his earpiece. Kai's transport is 30 minutes out. Gwen and Kevin are en route but won't arrive for at least an hour. Ben crouched behind a weathered concrete barrier, studying the facility's layout. The environmental suits worn by the figures suggested they were either human scientists or humanoid aliens concerned with contamination. Neither scenario explained the prey. Historic DNA sequences are cross-dimensional energy readings. Movement to his left triggered his combat instincts. Ben rolled sideways precisely as a figure landed where he'd been crouching, a woman in casual clothes that belied the precision of her attack. Before he could activate the Omnitrix, she spoke. "You're the one with the watch," she said, her voice carrying a distinctive confidence. "The one connected to whatever's happening here." Ben maintained his defensive stance but didn't immediately transform. "And you're not just a random hiker. The yellow gem around your neck is giving off same energy signature as what's below us." They regarded each other cautiously in the moonlight. She appeared close to his age, with features that suggested she could be either performing on stage or commanding a battlefield with equal authority. "Kira Ford," she finally offered. "From what I'm increasingly suspecting is a parallel Earth. And you, Ben Tennyson. Definitely from this Earth, but no stranger to parallel universes." He straightened slightly. "Your gem, it's connected to dinosaurs somehow, isn't it?" Surprise flickered across Kira's face. "Yellow Dino gem. Gives me the power of the pterodactyl. Among other abilities." "How did you know?" Ben tapped the Omnitrix. "This started downloading dinosaur DNA sequences about 12 hours ago. Something's connecting our worlds." A tremor shook the ground beneath them, drawing their attention back to the facility. The central building's foundations glowed increasingly bright, illuminating the surrounding area with pulsing amber light. "Those aren't scientists," Kira whispered, nodding toward the suited figures. "The way they move, too synchronized, too precise." Ben had noticed the same thing. "Agreed. And they're converging on whatever's causing that glow. We need to stop them," Kira said, her hand moving to the gem at her throat. "If they're after the source of these energy readings, it could destabilize both our worlds." Ben raised an eyebrow. "Just to be clear, you're suggesting we, as complete strangers from potentially different universes, team up to fight unknown entities over a mysterious energy source neither of us understands?" A smile tugged at Kira's lips. "Let me guess. Tuesday for you too." "Pretty much," Ben chuckled. "Okay. I can transform into one of over 70 different alien forms." "What can you do?" "Super strength, agility, sonic scream that can shatter concrete, and I used to pilot a giant mechanical pterodactyl," she replied matter-of-factly. "Oh, and I play guitar." Impressive resume. "Let's move before they..." Another tremor, stronger than before, cut him off. The ground split open near the central building, releasing a column of amber light that stretched skyward. The suited figures surrounded the fissure, extending devices that appeared to be collecting or measuring the energy. "That can't be good," Ben muttered, activating the Omnitrix. The holographic display CYC led through his transformation options before settling on Homungosaur. "This should work." The familiar green flash enveloped him, but instead of the expected transformation, Ben felt his DNA twisting in unfamiliar patterns. When the light faded, he stood as a previously unknown form, reptilian-like Homungosaur but sleeker, covered in iridescent scales with prominent neural spines running down his back. "What the?" His voice carried a harmonic resonance that vibrated the air itself. "This isn't Homungosaur." Kira stared at him, the gem at her throat pulsing in sync with the bioluminescent T-patterns flowing across Ben's new form. "It's responding to the energy source," she said. "And to my gem." Ben examined his transformed body, instinctively understanding its capabilities. "Strength, speed, enhanced senses. Similar to my standard transformations but different. More connected to something primal. Figure it out on the move," Kira suggested, already sprinting toward the facility with impressive speed. "They're stabilizing the energy rift." Ben followed, discovering his new form moved with predatory grace despite its size. As they approached, the suited figures turned in unison, revealing faceplates that reflected the amber light like insectoid eyes. Chronosapien extraction units, one announced in a mechanized voice. Organic interference detected. Neutralize and continue collection procedure. 4 of the figures broke formation, exformed into temporal displacement weapons. Ben recognized the technology immediately, more advanced than human but primitive comp. ARED to Professor Paradox's capabilities. They're time travelers, he called to Kira. Trying to extract something from the past. Like I needed more complications, Kira muttered before drawing deep breath. The scream that erupted from her sent visible sound waves rippling through the air, shattering the faceplates of 2 extraction units and sending them tumbling backward. Ben capitalized on the momentary chaos. Discovering his new form could project concentrated bursts of energy from his neural spines. The blast struck with surprising precision, disrupting the temporal weapons before they could discharge. The remaining extraction units converged, creating a defensive perimeter around the energy rift. The ground continued to fracture, the fissure widening to reveal what appeared to be massive fossilized remains embedded in stone far below, bones of creatures that dwarfed any dinosaur Ben had studied. We need to close that rift. Kira shouted over the increasing roar of energy. Before Ben could respond, a new tremor shook the facility, and from the rift emerged a massive crystalline structure, a shard of amber-colored material the size of a car, pulsing with the same energy as Kira's gem and the Omnitrix. Primal shard extraction at 30%, announced the lead unit. Temporal stabilization failing. Accelerate collection protocol. The extraction units extended collection devices toward the crystal, which responded by pulsing more intensely. Ben felt the Omnitrix resonate within his transformed DNA, pulling him toward the shard with undeniable force. Whatever that thing is, he called to Kira. It's directly connected to both the Omnitrix and your gem. Kira nodded, her expression focused despite the chaos. Cover me. I think I can disrupt their collection devices. As Ben engaged the nearest extraction units, Kira circled toward the crystal, her movements displaying the trained precision of someone accustomed to battlefield conditions. She timed her approach between energy pulses, reaching the edge of the rift as Ben kept the remaining units occupied. The extraction units proved more resilient than expected. Though humanoid in appearance, they moved with mechanical precision, adapting their tactics to counter Ben's attacks. He found himself relying on instinct more than experience, his new form's capabilities revealing themselves through combat rather than conscious control. Tennyson. A familiar voice cut through the chaos. Down. Ben dropped instinctively as a blast of energy sailed over him, striking an extraction unit that had circled behind him. Kai Green stood at the perimeter of the facility, wielding what appeared to be a modified plumber weapon. Nice timing, Ben called, genuinely pleased to see her despite their complicated history. But how did you? The cave paintings led me here, she replied, moving to his position with practiced efficiency. Her eyes widened slightly at his transformed state. That's a new one. Tell me about it. Ben agreed. Meet Kira Ford, apparently from a parallel Earth where dinosaur powers are a thing. Kai nodded toward Kira, who had reached the crystal and was attempting to disrupt the collection devices. The convergence is worse than we thought. These readings match artifacts I've found on 3 continents, all depicting the Omnitrix alongside prehistoric imagery. Another tremor shook the facility as the crystal rose further from the rift. The extraction units redoubled their efforts, their mechanized voices calling out in an unfamiliar language that non-Ethel sent recognition through Ben's transformed consciousness. They're Chronosapiens, he realized. But not like any I've encountered before. They're saying something about the correction and evolutionary divergence. Kai aimed her weapon at the nearest unit. They're trying to change Earth's evolutionary history. Why? Before Ben could hypothesize, a blinding flash erupted from the crystal. When his vision cleared, Kira stood with her hands pressed against the massive shard, her gem and the crystal pulsing in perfect synchronization. The extraction units had been thrown back by the energy release. Their systems momentarily disrupted. It's alive, Kira called, her voice carrying an odd harmonic quality. The crystal, it's conscious. It's trying to communicate. Ben approached cautiously, feeling the Omnitrix pulse in response to the crystal's energy. What's it saying? Not words exactly, Kira explained, her eyes reflecting amber light. Images, Feelings. It's called the primal spirit. It was here before the dinosaurs, guiding their evolution. These chronosapiens are trying to extract it, to use it to reset Earth's evolutionary path. To ensure dinosaurs remain the dominant species, Kai concluded. Understanding dawning, preventing mammals, and humans, from ever evolving. The lead extraction unit recovered, its mechanized voice addressing them directly for the first time. Your understanding is incomplete, temporal natives. The primal spirit is not merely an evolutionary catalyst, it is the architect of consciousness itself. The unit's faceplate retracted, revealing not the expected mechanical components but a shifting, clock-like face that Ben recognized as characteristic of true chronosapiens, though altered, evolved beyond what he'd previously encountered. I am Temporal Architect Chronos, it announced. What you witness is not theft but restoration. The primal spirit was never meant to remain on Earth. Its presence altered the intended evolutionary path of countless worlds across multiple dimensions. And who decided what was intended? Ben challenged, stepping protectively toward the crystal where Kira maintained contact. The natural order of time itself. Chronos replied, your very existence, mammals achieving dominance on this world, is a temporal aberration caused by the spirit's unintended influence. We seek to correct this fundamental error. Kai moved forward, her archaeological expertise evident in her approach. You're talking about the asteroid impact that killed the dinosaurs. It wasn't natural, was it? It was a containment failure. Chronos confirmed. The vessel carrying the spirit crashed on this world 65 million years ago. The resulting extinction event allowed mammals to rise. A cosmic accident that we have spent millennia preparing to correct. The crystal pulsed again, and Kira gasped as new information flowed into her consciousness. It doesn't want to be restored, she relayed. It chose to remain on Earth. It's been waiting for the right vessels to connect with. Ben felt the Omnitrix warm against his transformed skin. Vessels. You mean us. The Omnitrix, Kai said, realization dawning. It's the perfect interface between organic life and the spirit's energy. That's why it's been downloading prehistoric DNA sequences, it's establishing compatibility. Chronos gestured, and the extraction units reformed their perimeter. The connection is irrelevant. The restoration will proceed. I don't think so, Ben growled, feeling his new form's power surging through him. I've stopped plenty of aliens from correcting Earth before. You're just the latest in a very long line. The Omnitrix symbol on his chest pulsed with intensifying light, synchronizing with both Kira's gem and the crystal. Ben felt knowledge flowing into him, understanding of his new form's capabilities, its connection to something ancient and powerful. Primosaurus, he named himself instinctively. And I think it's time you learned why changing Earth's history is a really bad idea. Chronos raised a hand, temporal energy gathering around the extraction units. Your resistance is noted but futile. E Collective has calculated all possible outcomes. Bet you didn't calculate this, Kira called, her gem flaring brilliantly as she channeled its energy into a focused scream that struck the crystal at precisely. The primal shard responded immediately, its amber surface fracturing along precise geometrical patterns. Instead of shattering, it reconfigured, sections separating and orbiting a center. Al-core like a complex three-dimensional puzzle. Containment breach, Chronos shouted, genuine alarm breaking through his mechanical tone. The spirit is awakening prematurely. From within the reconfigured crystal, a blinding light emerged, not amber now but pure white energy that formed itself into a massive, ethereal shape. The silhouette resembled a dinosaur but more primal, more fundamental, as though it represented the concept of prehistoric life rather than any specific species. The spectral entity surveyed the scene before focusing on Ben, Kira, and Kai. When it spoke, the words BIPA, SSED their ears and manifested directly in their minds. Chronosapien interference rejected. Evolutionary paths must remain diverse. The confluence of dimensions was expected. The vessels have been prepared. Vessels. Kai questioned, her voice steady despite the extraordinary circumstances. What do you mean? The Watchbearer bridges technology and biology. The Gem Keeper bridges dimensions and time. The Knowledge Seeker bridges past and future. Together, you will contain what the Chronosapiens would misuse. Ben exchanged glances with Kira and Kai, seeing the same mix of confusion and Determination reflected in their expressions. "We don't exactly have a manual for containing ancient spirits," he pointed out. The entity's response carried what felt surprisingly like amusement. "The connection has already begun. The Omnitrix adapts. The gem resonates. The knowledge guides." As if in confirmation, the Omnitrix symbol on Ben's chest projected a holographic display of DNA sequence. CES, the mysterious prehistoric patterns now fully integrated into its database. Kira's gem pulsed with renewed energy, and the ancient symbols in Kai's research tablets suddenly illuminated with the same amber light. Kronos stepped forward, temporal energy crackling around him. "This connection violates the ordained timeline. The spirit must be restored to its proper dimensional plane." "There is no proper plane," the entity countered. "All dimensions are valid evolutionary paths. Your collective seeks uniformity where diversity is strength." The extraction units moved in unison, devices configuring to forcibly contain the spirit. Ben reacted instinctively, channeling energy through his transformed body into a protective barrier surrounding the entity, Kira, and Kai. "Whatever you're planning," he addressed the spirit, "now would be a good time. These guys don't seem like the compromising type." The spirit's ethereal form contracted, condensing into a brilliant sphere of energy that hovered between them. "The bonding requires acceptance. The power of the Primal Dino spirit predates time itself. Do you accept this responsibility?" Ben thought of all the times he'd taken on seemingly impossible responsibilities, wielding the Omnitrix, saving the universe, preserving the delicate balance between countless alien species. This was different, more primal, but the core remained the same. Protecting Earth's future by safeguarding its past. "I accept," he said firmly. Kira nodded, her expression resolute. "I already carry the pterodactyl spirit. What's one more ancient power?" "I accept." Kai hesitated longest, her analytical mind clearly weighing implications. "My people have always been guardians of knowledge," she finally said. "I accept." The spirit's energy pulsed with approval. "The bond is formed. The Chronosapiens cannot prevail." The sphere expanded suddenly, engulfing the three of them in brilliant light. Ben felt the Omnitrix recalibrating at unprecedented speed, integrating new transformation capabilities while his consciousness expanded to encompass knowledge of creatures that had existed before recorded time. When the light faded, the extraction units lay scattered and deactivated across the facility grounds. Only Kronos remained standing, his temporal form flickering with instability. "You cannot comprehend what you have done," he warned, his voice distorting. "The collective will not accept this outcome. Other agents will come." "They always do," Ben replied, feeling the Omnitrix return him to human form as the power stabilized within it. "And we'll be ready." Kronos' form collapsed into a swirling temporal vortex that vanished with a thunderclap of displaced air. The facility fell silent, the rift in the earth slowly closing as though the land itself was healing. Ben turned to his new allies, seeing the same mix of exhaustion and exhilaration he felt reflected in their faces. "So, that happened." Kira touched the gem at her throat, which now pulsed with a deeper, more resonant energy. "The spirit wasn't lying about dimensional convergence. I can feel my world shifting, aligning with yours somehow. The archaeological evidence makes sense now," Kai added, studying the readings on her tablet. "The spirit has been influencing Earth throughout its history, preparing for this moment." "The question is," Ben said, watching the last traces of amber energy fade from the landscape, "what happens next? The Chronosapien collective doesn't strike me as the type to give up easily." Before either could respond, the ground trembled again, not from energy this time, but from impact. Something massive had landed nearby. Ben turned, already activating the Omnitrix, when a familiar voice called from the darkness. "The tremors in the morphing grid led me here," said a male voice as a figure emerged from the shadows. "I see I'm not the only one who felt the call." Kira's expression transformed to shock and relief. "Dr. Oliver." The newcomer stepped into the ambient light, a man in his 40s with short dark hair and an authoritative presence that reminded Ben of his grandfather. "Tommy Oliver," he introduced himself. "And I'm guessing you've all just had a close encounter with what we call the Primal Dino spirit. You know about this?" Ben asked, not yet relaxing his stance. Tommy nodded grimly. "Only legends. Until 3 days ago when every former Dino Ranger's powers began reactivating simultaneously. But that's not why I'm here. He looked directly at Kira. Something else came through with the spirit. Something we thought we'd defeated years ago. Mesogog, Kira whispered, her expression hardening. Tommy confirmed with a grim nod. He's back, and he's not alone. As if summoned by the name. A shadow passed overhead. Too large to be a bird, too silent to be an aircraft. They looked up to see a massive reptilian form silhouetted against the night sky, wings extended as it circled T. He facility once before disappearing into the darkness. What was that? Kai asked, her hand instinctively moving to the ceremonial knife at her belt. Ben's eyes tracked the creature's trajectory, T. He Omnitrix already scanning and cataloging its biological signature. Whatever it is, it's not in the Omnitrix database. At least, it wasn't until today. Tommy's expression grew more severe. That's because it's not from this universe or timeline. It's a Bio-Dino, Mesogog's latest creation. And from what I've gathered, he's planning to use the primal spirit to create an army of them. Ben exchanged looks with Kira and Kai, feeling the weight of their new responsibility settling upon them. The spirit had chosen them as its vessels, connecting their distinct abilities and backgrounds into song. Anything greater than themselves individually. Then I guess we've got work to do, Ben said, the Omnitrix glowing with renewed purpose on his wrist. Because if there's one thing I've learned from experience, when ancient powers choose you, saying no isn't really an option. Kira nodded, determination replacing exhaustion in her stance. Welcome to my world. Technically, Kai corrected, a hint of her academic precision breaking through. It's our world now. The dimensional convergence is accelerating. RS rearranging themselves into unfamiliar patterns before settling into a new configurity. A hybrid of two universal constants merging into something unique. The Primal Dino spirit had awakened, bridging worlds and time itself. Whatever came next, Ben knew with absolute certainty, would redefine everything they thought they understood about Earth's past, and its future. Chapter 1 End Chapter 2, Evolutionary Catalysts. The Rust Bucket 3 sliced through dawn-tinged clouds, its advanced propulsion system barely audible despite the impressive speed. Inside the cockpit, Ben guided the ship with practiced precision while Kai reviewed data from the Indonesian cave paintings on her tablet. Tommy and Kira occupied the rear seats, speaking in low, urgent tones about the implications of Mesogog's return. Bio-Dinos, Kira said, shaking her head. That's a major evolution from the Tyrannodrones we fought before. How did he manage that without the resources from Mercer Industries? Tommy's expression remained grim. That's what worries me. Mesogog shouldn't have had the means to reconstitute himself, let alone advance his genetic engineering capabilities. Something, or someone, has been helping him. Ben adjusted their course slightly, keeping one ear on the conversation. You mentioned fusion with a human host before, this drive. Mercer, could that have happened again? Possible, Tommy acknowledged, but Anton's been under observation since our last encounter with Mesogog. Whatever's happening, it's following a different playbook. Kai looked up from her research. These Bio-Dinos, they're genetically engineered creatures designed to harness prehistoric DNA. Essentially weapons, Kira confirmed. But previous versions were foot soldiers, dangerous but manageable. What we saw at the facility was something else entirely. The Omnitrix beeped suddenly, its holograph. IC display activating without Ben's input. Complex DNA sequences scrolled across the projection, highlighting molecular structures unlike anything in its standard catalog. Still downloading, Ben murmured, studying the display. The primal spirit must have unlocked access to evolutionary pathways the Omnitrix couldn't previously detect. Kai moved closer, her archaeological expertise shifting seamlessly into scientific analysis. These sequences contain markers consistent with what we know of Earth's earliest reptiles, but the chromosomal structure is unlike anything in our fossil record. Because they didn't evolve naturally on Earth, Tommy suggested. The spirit said it predated time itself. What if it was influencing evolution across multiple planets, multiple dimensions? The Ori hung in the air as Ben guided the Rust Bucket into its final approach toward Plumber headquarters. The ship descended through a holographically concealed opening in what appeared to be an ordinary auto repair shop, revealing the vast underground complex beneath. Welcome to Plumber HQ, Ben announced as the landing sequence completed. Earth branch of the Intergalactic Peacekeeping Force and, conveniently, where my grandfather works. Kira raised an eyebrow, taking in the advanced technology and diverse alien species visible through the viewports. And I thought the Dino Thunder Command Center was impressive. Tommy studied the facility with professional assessment. Your grandfather, he's aware of our unique situation. Magister Tennyson is expecting us, Ben confirmed, powering down the ship's systems. And if I know him, he's already gathered everyone who might help us understand what we're dealing with. As they disembarked, a familiar figure waited on the landing platform, Max Tennyson. Still imposing despite his years, his plumber uniform adorned with the insignia of his rank. Ben, he greeted, eyes quickly assessing the newcomers. I see you've brought friends. Grandpa, meet Dr. Tommy Oliver and Kira Ford, apparently from a parallel Earth where dinosaur-powered superheroes are a thing. Ben gestured between them. And you remember Kai, Ms. Green, Max acknowledged with a warm nod. Your grandfather sends his regards. He's been invaluable in coordinating our response to these energy signatures. Kai smiled slightly. Wes always did have a knack for knowing when something big was brewing. Max turned his attention to Tommy, extending a hand. Dr. Oliver, your reputation precedes you, even across dimensional boundaries. The plumbers maintain files on significant defenders from parallel Earths. Seems I'm at a disadvantage then, Tommy replied, shaking the offered hand. Until recently, I wasn't aware of any organization monitoring cross-dimensional activities. We try to keep a low profile, Max said with a hint of wry humor. But given current circumstances, I think we can dispense with some of the usual protocols. If you'll follow me, we've assembled a team to analyze what happened at the desert facility. The group followed Max through security checkpoints into the heart of Plumber headquarters. Alien technology seamlessly integrated with Earth systems created an environment that visibly impressed even Tommy, who Kira had described as nearly unflappable. Your collection of extraterrestrial technology is remarkable, Tommy observed. Some of these systems appear similar to what we salvaged from Mesogog's island fortress. Different universe, similar problems, Max replied. Humanity seems to attract extraordinary NTION regardless of which reality we're discussing. They entered a circular chamber dominated by a holographic projection system. Around the central platform stood a diverse group, some human, others distinctly not. Ben immediately recognized Blukik and Dryba arguing over a control panel, while a tall, slender woman with vibrant red hair examined energy readings on a floating display. Ben. The redhead looked up, relief evident in her expression. She crossed the room quickly, embracing him before stepping back to assess him with familiar scrutiny. The energy signature we detected, it's all over you. Are you all right? I'm fine, Gwen, Ben assured her. Just added some prehistoric DNA to the collection. Meet our visitors from another Earth, Kira Ford and Dr. Tommy Oliver. Gwen Tennyson extended her hand, purple energy briefly flickering across her fingertips. Gwen Tennyson, cousin to Ben and Anodite practitioner. My energy detection spells nearly overloaded when you arrived. Anodite, Kira questioned. Energy beings, Ben explained. Gwen's grandmother was one. She's inherited some of their abilities, magic, essentially, though she hates when I call it that. Because magic implies randomness. Gwen corrected with practiced patience. What I do follows specific rules and principles, just not ones conventional science has catalogued yet. Tommy studied her with evident interest. In our world, we have what we call the morphing grid, an energy field that powers the ranger abilities. It sounds similar to what you're describing. Fascinating, Gwen replied. I'd love to compare notes on the underlying principles. Max cleared his throat, redirecting attention to the matter at hand. While the theoretical discussions are valuable, we have more immediate concerns. The energy signature from the primal spirit is unlike anything we've encountered. It's rewriting aspects of reality itself where our universes intersect. The holographic display shifted to show a global map with glowing hotspots scattered across continents. The largest concentration pulsed in the Mojave Desert where they'd encountered the spirit, but significant readings appeared in the Amazon basin, Antarctica, and central Indonesia. The convergence is accelerating, Max continued. Dr. Chen, Would you explain your findings? The slender woman Ben hadn't recognized stepped forward, adjusting frameless glasses. Dr. Haley Chen, quantum physicist specializing in parallel universe theory. The energy readings suggest a progressive merging of dimensional boundaries, not a complete collapse, but rather a synchronization of specified the holographic controls, zooming in on the Amazon basin. This location shows particular instability. Temporal readings indicate localized fractures in the space-time continuum, essentially windows into prehistoric eras. That would explain the Bio-Dino sighting, Tommy said. Mesogog could be using these fractures to extract genetic material directly from the source. Ben studied the display, tactical assessment becoming second nature after years of experience. So we have multiple fronts to address: the dimensional merging, Mesogog's activities, and the Chronosapian collective that's still out there somewhere. Plus understanding what exactly the primal spirit wants from us, Kai added. It chose us specifically as vessels, but wasn't exactly forthcoming about what that entails. The Omnitrix beeped again, drawing everyone's attention. Its display cycled through alien silhouettes before settling on the form Ben had involuntarily taken at the desert facility, Primosaurus. I think it's trying to tell us something, Ben murmured, studying the display. The new transformation isn't just another alien form, it's a direct connection to the spirit itself. Gwen approached, her hands glowing with purple energy as she scanned the device. The magical signature is unlike anything I've encountered, ancient, but not exactly extraterrestrial. It's as though it exists simultaneously in multiple dimensional planes, which matches what we know of the spirit, Kai said. The cave paintings depicted it as existing between worlds, rather than belonging to any specific realm. Kira touched the gem at her throat, which pulsed with renewed energy in proximity to the Omnitrix. The dino gems were created by the morphing grid's energy interacting with meteorite fragments. What if they're not just connected to the spirit but actually fragments of it? Tommy considered this. It would explain why the gems bonded with human DNA in ways other power sources couldn't. They weren't just tools, they were looking for compatible hosts. Just like the spirit said it had been searching for vessels, Ben realized. This connection has been developing for millions of years. Dr. Chen manipulated the holographic display again, overlaying the energy signatures with historical data. The convergence points correspond to major evolutio leaps in Earth's history, the emergence of early reptiles, the rise of dinosaurs, their extinction, and the development of mammals. Not coincidences, Max concluded. Deliberate interventions. A contemplative silence fell over the group as they absorbed the implications. The primal spirit hadn't merely influenced Earth's development, it had orchestrated critical junctures in evolutionary history. Perhaps across multiple dimensions. We need more information, Ben finally said. And it looks like the Amazon site is our best bet for finding it. If Mesogog is extracting genetic material from temporal fractures there, we need to understand how he's doing it, and stop him. Agreed, Tommy said. Kira and I have experience fighting Mesogog. We should lead the Amazon expedition. The rust bucket can get us there in under 2 hours, Ben offered. I'm coming too, Kai stated firmly. The archaeological aspects of this situation are my specialty. If there are artifacts or historical evidence at the site, I'll recognize their significance. Gwen stepped forward. I should join as well. If the temporal fractures are as unstable as Dr. Chen suggests, my containment spells might help prevent further deterioration. Max nodded approval. Dr. Chen, can your team continue analyzing the energy signatures while they investigate the Amazon site? Of course, she confirmed. We'll establish a direct communication link. If the dimensional barriers fluctuate beyond current parameters, you'll be immediately notified. As the others prepared for departure, Ben found himself momentarily alone with Kai near the equipment lockers. The familiar awkwardness that had characterized their interactions since childhood had evolved into something more complex, mutual respect tempered by the weight of their shared history. So, Ben began, selecting tactical gear from the shelves, archaeology working out for you. Kai smiled slightly, recognizing the attempted casualness for what it was. It has its moments, especially when ancient alien influences keep validating my outlandish theories. My doctoral advisor nearly had an aneurysm when I submitted my thesis on extraterrestrial intervention in prehistoric development. Quote, "But you stuck with it anyway," Ben observed. "Some things you just know are true, even when everyone tells you you're crazy." Her eyes met his briefly. "I learned that from watching you. Actually." The admission surprised him. "Me. You never doubted what you saw, what you experienced, even when the whole world thought you were making up stories about alien transformations." She selected a scanner from the equipment rack, testing its calibration. It made an impression on a kid who was being told her people's stories were just myths. Ben Conside read this new perspective on their shared past. "I never thought about it that way. I just did what seemed right at the time." "You still do," Kai replied, her tone matter of fact rather than flattering. "It's one of your more frustrating qualities, being consistently right about the impossible." A genuine laugh escaped him. "Now that's definitely not something I hear often." "Don't let it go to your head, Tennyson," she warned. But the smile tugging at her lips softened the admonishment. "We have work to do." 20,000 feet above the Amazon rainforest, Kira stared out the Rustby Ucket's viewport at the endless green canopy below. The gem at her throat pulsed with increasing frequency as they approached the convergence point, responding to something ancient awakening beneath the verdant surface. "You're worried about them," Tommy observed from the seat beside her, his voice low enough that the others couldn't hear over the ship's systems. Kira didn't pretend to misunderstand. "Connor, Ethan, Trent, none of them are answering." "That's not like them, especially Ethan. That guy sleeps with his phone." "Their gems are activating too," Tommy confirmed. "They're being drawn to different convergence points, just as we were. Haley's tracking them, but communications are increasingly unreliable as the dimensional barriers fluctuate." "So we're on our own," Kira concluded, unconsciously touching her gem. "Not entirely." Tommy nodded toward Ben, who was piloting with impressive skill for someone his age. "These people know what they're doing. Different universe, but same commitment to protecting their world." From the cockpit, Ben called back, "We're approaching the coordinates. Sensors are detecting significant temporal distortion approximately 3 miles ahead. Hang on. I need to find a landing zone in this jungle." The rust bucket banked smoothly, circling a region where the unbroken green canopy gave way to an unnatural clearing. Even from altitude, perfect circularity of the opening seemed suspicious. "That's not a natural formation," Kai observed, studying the terrain through specialized binoculars. "The vegetation pattern suggests it was Wielded recently, within the last 48 hours. Thermal imaging shows unusual heat signatures below the surface," Gwen added, monitoring sensor readings. "Consistent with advanced technology rather than geological activity." Ben brought the ship lower, maintaining a cautious distance from the clearing. "I'm detecting movement at the perimeter. Humanoid figures, approximately 20 of them." Kira leaned forward, studying the images as the ship's cameras zoomed in on the figures. Her expression hardened with recognition. Tyrannodrones, Mesogogs foot soldiers. But they're different, more evolved. The creatures patrolling the clearing's edge moved with unnerving precision, their reptilian forms larger and more heavily armored than Kira remembered. Biomechagrated seamlessly with scaled flesh, suggesting significant technological advancement. "He's upgraded them," Tommy confirmed grimly. "These aren't the same drones we fought before." Ben completed another pass over the area, before identifying a concealed landing zone approximately a mile from the clearing. He guided the rust bucket into a small natural opening in the canopy, activating the ship's camouflage systems as they touched down. "The environmental controls say it's 97 degrees out there with 90% humidity," he announced, powering down the engines. "In case anyone was hoping for comfortable field conditions. Beats fighting in an active volcano," Kira remarked, checking her equipment. "Which, unfortunately, I have experience with." The team disembarked into the oppressive heat of the Amazon rainforest. Towering trees created a cathedral-like atmosphere, dappled sunlight filtering through multiple canopy layers. The rich biodiversity that would normally have dominated sensory input was overshadowed by an unnatural silence. No birds called, no insects buzzed. "The wildlife has abandoned the area," Kai noted, activating her scanner. "Never a good sign." Gwen closed her eyes briefly. purple energy flickering across her fingertips as she extended her senses. The temporal distortion is affecting everything within a 3-mile radius. I can feel fractures in the fabric of reality, like looking through cracked glass into different time periods. Can you pinpoint the source? Tommy asked. Gwen oriented herself, then pointed northeast. That way. The distortions grow longer as we approach the clearing we saw from the air. Ben activated the Omnitrix, cycling through transformation options. We should approach carefully. If Mesogog has as many troops as we saw, direct confrontation isn't our best first move. Agreed, Tommy said. Reconnaissance first. We need to understand what he's doing with the temporal fractures before we engage. Ben selected Big Chill from the Omnitrix display. This should work for stealth. I can phase through solid matter and remain invisible when needed. The familiar green flash enveloped him, but instead of the expected Necrophrygian form. Ben's DNA twisted into something unexpected. When the transformation completed, he stood 8 feet tall with iridescent blue-black scales and membranous wings folded against his back. The form resembled Big Chill in basic structure but with distinctly prehistoric characteristics. Powerful jaws, a finned crest, and a long, articulated tail. Okay, this is getting old, Ben said, his voice carrying a harmonic resonance that vibrated the air. That's the second time the Omnitrix has substituted a dinosaur version of my selected alien. Kira studied his transformed state with evident fascination. It looks like a pterosaur crossed with your ice alien. The primal spirit is definitely influencing your transformations. Ben experimentally extended his wings, discovering their impressive span. When he exhaled, frost crystallized in the humid air. Still has Big Chill's cryokinetic abilities, at least. Let's call this one Glaciopteryx. The Omnitrix is adapting to the primal spirit's influence, Gwen observed, creating hybrid forms that combine your alien transformations with prehistoric DNA. Which might actually be an advantage, Tommy suggested. Mesogog will be prepared for standard dinosaur powers like ours, but these hybrid forms will be unknown variables. Ben tested his new transformation's abilities, discovering he could still phase through solid objects and maintain invisibility. Though with more effort than Big Chill required. The form also possessed enhanced strength and sensory capabilities uniquely suited to the jungle environment. I'll scout ahead, he decided. Wings spreading. Stay in communication range. If I find anything significant, I'll report back before engaging. Be careful, Gwen warned. The temporal distortions might affect your transformation in unpredictable ways. Ben nodded before becoming transparent and launching into the air. The sensation of flight in this form differed from Big Chill's, more powerful, more primal. Requiring instinctive rather than calculated movements. He soared above the canopy briefly before diving back through the foliage, phasing through solid matter when necessary. As he approached the clearing, the air itself seemed to change, subtle distortions in light and sound suggesting fundamental instabilities in space-time. Ben maintained invisibility, gliding silently toward the center of the activity. The clearing housed a sophisticated excavation operation. Tyrannodrones worked with mechanical efficiency, removing layers of earth to reveal what appeared to be an ancient structure beneath. In the center stood an imposing technological array, a ring of pillars generating an energy field that stabilized what was unmistakably a temporal rift. Through the rift, Ben glimpsed a prehistoric landscape, massive ferns and cycads beneath an unfamiliar sky where pterosaurs circled. Tyrannodrones moved through the opening, returning with specimens of plants and occasionally smaller creatures, which were processed through equipment at the site's perimeter. Most concerning, however, was the figure overseeing the operation. The reptilian humanoid stood nearly 7 feet tall, its body an unsettling fusion of dinosaur and technological components. Though Ben had never encountered Mesogog, the description Kira and Tommy had provided matched the entity perfectly, albeit an evolved, enhanced version. Ben activated his communicator, keeping his voice low despite his invisibility. I've found the operation. They've established a stable temporal rift, a direct window into what looks like the late Cretaceous period. Mesogog is personally overseeing the extraction of biological samples. Can you determine what they're doing with the samples? Tommy's voice came through clearly. Ben circled the perimeter, staying well above detection range. They're processing them through some kind of genetic sequencer. There are storage units containing what appear to be embryonic forms, early-stage biodinos, I'm guessing. He's creating an army, Kira concluded. Using pure genetic material from the source rather than fossilized DNA. There's something else, Ben reported, focusing on a secondary structure near the main operation. Some kind of containment unit. It's heavily guarded and connected to the temporal rift generator. I can't see what's inside from this position. We need a closer look at that containment unit, Tommy decided. It could be crucial to understanding his overall plan. I'll try to get closer, Ben offered, banking toward the secondary structure. As he approached, his Omnitrix symbol began pulsing with amber light, resonating with something inside the containment unit. The reaction was strong enough to momentarily disrupt his invisibility, causing him to quickly retreat to avoid detection. Whatever they're containing, it's connected to the primal spirit, Ben reported. The Omnitrix reacted strongly to it, almost like recognition. A fragment of the spirit itself. Gwen suggested. Like the crystal we encountered in the desert. Possible, Ben agreed, but I can't get close enough to confirm without risking detection. We need a plan. Kai's voice came through the communicator. The structure they're excavating, can you describe it? Ben circled back, studying the partially revealed ruins. Stone construction, megalithic style. Massive blocks fitted without mortar. There are carved symbols similar to the ones from your cave paintings, Kai. It sounds like a temple complex, she replied, excitement evident despite the circumstances. The spirit mentioned influencing Earth throughout its history. This could be a site where it was actively worshipped or studied by an ancient Amazonian civilization. Which means the temple might contain information about how to control or contain the spirit's power, Tommy concluded. Or how Mesogog, Cora added grimly. Ben completed his reconnaissance, gathering as much detail as possible before returning to the team's position. As he landed and reverted to human form, the others gathered around to review his findings. Mesogog has approximately 30 Tyrannodrones on site, plus what appears to be 5 of the more advanced biodinos we encountered in the desert, Ben reported. The temporal rift is stabilized by technology I haven't seen before, not Chronosipian design, but similarly advanced. He always was brilliant with genetic manipulation and temporal physics, Tommy acknowledged. But this level of advancement suggests outside assistance. Gwen studied the rough map Ben had sketched. The temporal distortions are weakest here and here, she indicated 2 points on the perimeter. I might be able to create a shielded approach through either location. The containment unit is our priority, Kira asserted. If he's captured a fragment of the spirit, we need to free it before he can harness its power. The temple ruins could provide crucial context, Kai countered. Understanding the spirit's connection to this site might reveal vulnerabilities in Mesogog's plan. Tommy considered both perspectives. We'll need to split up. Kira and I have the most experience fighting Tyrannodrones. We'll target the containment unit. Kai should examine the temple ruins with Gwen for protection. Ben, your transformations give you the most flexibility to respond wherever needed. The strategy made tactical sense, but Ben had learned through experience that splitting up often led to complications. We should establish a fallback position and communication protocol in case things go sideways. The ship is too far, Gwen noted. But I can create a shielded position approximately half a mile from the operation, close enough for quick extraction but outside their patrol perimeter. As they finalized their approach, a low rumble shook the ground beneath them. Through gaps in the canopy, they glimpsed energy flaring from the clearing, the temporal rift. Expanding dramatically before stabilizing at nearly twice its previous size. That can't be good, Ben muttered. They're widening the rift, Tommy explained, expression grim. Preparing to bring something larger through. Or someone, Kira added. Mesogog had allies in our world, other enemies we've faced who might be willing to assist his current operation. The urgency of their situation crystallized with this development. They quickly distributed equipment, communication devices, weapons for those without innate powers, and specialized scanners calibrated to detect temporal anomalies. Remember, Tommy advised as they prepared to move out, Mesogog is calculating and patient. If he's accelerating his timeline, it means either he's close to achieving his goal or he knows we're coming. Either way, Ben replied. Activating the Omnitrix, we're about to disrupt his plans. This time, He deliberately selected the Primosaurus form he'd discovered in the desert. The transformation felt more natural now, his consciousness expanding to encompass the primal instincts and knowledge embedded in this evolutionary lineage. "Let's move," he growled, the Omnitrix symbol pulsing with steady amber light against his chest. The approach to Mesogog's operation proceeded more smoothly than anticipated, perhaps too smoothly, Kira thought as she and Tommy navigated the perimeter using the cover of dense undergrowth. The Tyrannodrones maintained predictable patrol patterns, leaving exploitable gaps in their security. "This feels wrong," she whispered to Tommy as they paused behind massive tree roots. "The drones aren't being careless, but they're not exhibiting the adaptive tactics Mesogog typically programs into them." Tommy nodded agreement, almost like he wants us to infiltrate. "Stay alert, we could be walking into a trap." Their Dino gems pulsed with increasing intensity as they neared the containment unit Ben had identified. The structure resembled a massive crystalline egg, its surface etched with familiar symbols that matched both their morphers and the markings from Kai's cave paintings. "Definitely connected to the spirit," Kira confirmed, her gem practically vibrating against her skin. "And it's responding to our presence." Tommy studied the 4 Tyrannodrones guarding the unit. "Standard formation. On my mark, we neutralize them simultaneously." Quietly, Kira nodded, centering herself as she'd done countless times before. Though years had passed since her active ranger days, the discipline and focus returned instinctively. Her gem's energy flowed through her, enhancing her natural abilities beyond human limitations. Tommy gave the signal, and they moved with synchronized precision. Kira launched herself at the nearest drone, her enhanced strength allowing her to drive it to the ground before it could alert others. A precisely directed sonic pulse, focused to affect only her immediate target, disrupted its neural systems. Tommy dispatched 2 drones with elegant efficiency, his movements betraying decades of martial arts mastery augmented by ranger powers. The 4th drone managed a partial alarm cry before Kira silenced it with another focused sonic attack. "Control panel," Tommy indicated, moving to the unit's base where an interface glowed with amber light. Definitely using the spirit's energy to power the containment field. Kira positioned herself to watch for approaching threats while Tommy examined the controls. "Can you deactivate it? The system architecture is unlike anything I've seen," he admitted. "It's interfacing directly with the temporal rift technology. Deactivating it incorrectly could destabilize the entire operation." "Which might be exactly what we want," Kira suggested. Tommy shook his head. "Not with the rift at its current size. An uncontrolled collapse could tear open the dimensional barriers completely. We need a controlled shutdown." He activated his communicator. "Kai, we've reached the containment unit. The symbols match your cave paintings but include additional patterns I don't recognize. Any insights from the temple ruins?" Kai's voice came through with minimal static. Quote, "The temple appears to be a monitoring station of sorts. The civilization that built it was tracking something they called the Great Migration, periods when the spirit moved between dimensions, bringing evolutionary leaps with it. Does it indicate how they interacted with the spirit?" Tommy pressed. "Yes," Kai replied, excitement evident despite their circumstances. "They developed a harmonic resonance pattern that could communicate with the spirit. Gwen thinks it's essentially a frequency code, like dialing a specific cosmic wavelength." Kira's gem pulsed again, seemingly in response to this information. "Our gems resonate at specific frequencies too. That's how they connect to the morphing grid. And why they're responding to the spirit now," Tommy realized. "They operate on compatible frequencies." While they discussed implications, Kira noticed a subtle change in the containment unit's surface, microscopic fractures appearing where her gem's light touched it. "Tommy," she interrupted, "I think my gem is affecting the containment field." Tommy examined the developing fractures. "The field must be calibrated to resist certain frequencies but not the specific resonance of your gem. Can you amplify it?" Kira focused her energy, channeling it through her gem as she'd done when accessing her ranger powers. The yellow light intensified, striking the containment unit in a concentrated beam. The fractures spread rapidly, the crystalline surface beginning to destabilize. "It's working," Tommy confirmed, stepping back as the field fluctuated. "Whatever's inside is responding to your gem's frequency." From within the unit came a pulse of brilliant light, not amber like the desert crystal, but a deep, resonant blue that somehow conveyed ancient oceanic depths. The containment field shattered outward, forcing them to shield themselves G-ments. Floating where the unit had stood was a shard similar to what they'd encountered in the desert, but smaller and distinctly aquatic in its energy signature. It rotated slowly, pulsing with light that seemed to call directly to Kira's gem. "Another fragment of the spirit," she whispered, instinctively reaching toward it. "Kira, wait," Tommy began. But she had already made contact. The fragment's energy surged through her, connecting with her gem and creating a feedback loop of power. Images flooded her consciousness, prehistoric oceans teeming with life, evolutionary leaps occurring under the spirit's influence, ancient civilizations worshipping at temples built over dimensional convergence points. Most strikingly, she witnessed Mesogog's true plan, not merely creating an army of biodinos, but using the spirit's fragments to transform Earth's biosphere into an environment hostile to mammals and optimal for reptilian life. The containment units weren't imprisoning the fragments but processing them, extracting specific aspects of their evolutionary potential. As the vision faded, Kira found herself supported by Tommy, the fragment now integrated with her gem, which glowed with enhanced blue-gold light. "He's not just building an army," she gasped, struggling to organize the overwhelming information. "He's terraforming. The biodinos are just the first stage. He plans to use the spirit's power to rewrite Earth's entire ecosystem." Tommy helped her to her feet as alarms blared across the compound. "We've been detected. Can you move?" Kira nodded, finding her strength returning rapidly, enhanced, even, by the fragment's integration with her gem. "Better than ever, actually. Let's find the others." Ben, in Primosaurus form, had positioned himself at a vantage point overlooking the main operation. The temporal rift pulsed with increasing instability, its edges fluctuating as though struggling to maintain coherence. Through his communicator, he'd heard Kai and Gwen's discoveries at the temple, followed by Tommy and Kira's successful liberation of the spirit fragment. "The operation's Security systems have detected the breach," he reported, watching Tyrannodrones converge on the containment unit's position. "Mesogog is redirecting forces toward your location, Tommy. I'm moving to intercept." "Negative," Tommy replied. "Kira's absorbed the fragment. We're extracting to the fallback position. Focus on disrupting the rift generator before they bring anything else through." Ben studied the generator's configuration, calculating potential weaknesses. The central array appeared to draw power from multiple sources, including what resembled Nalgian technology, concerning, given the IR advanced temporal manipulation capabilities. Before he could formulate an approach, movement at the rift caught his attention. The opening widened again, energy crackling around its perimeter as Omething massive began emerging from the prehistoric landscape beyond. First came an elongated neck, followed by a body that dwarfed the Tyrannodrones gathering around it. The creature resembled an Apatosaurus in basic structure but with significant modifications, biomechanical components integrated with living tissue, weaponry mounted along its spine, and an unnatural intelligence gleaming in eyes that should have belonged to a simple herbivore. "They've brought through a weaponized sauropod," Ben reported, watching in disbelief as the massive biodino fully materialized. "It's at least 7 feet long and heavily augmented with technology. That matches Mesogog's previous attempts to create dinosaur-based weapons," Tommy confirmed. "But never at this scale." The biosauropod roared, the sound carrying unnatural harmonics that sent smaller wildlife fleeing in terror. At its side stood Mesogog, looking almost diminutive compared to his creation. He placed a clawed hand on the creature's flank, and Ben could swear the dinosaur responded with something approaching reverence. "Now we witness evolution's true path," Mesogog's voice carried across the clearing, amplified by some technological means. "The mammals have had their moment, a cosmic accident that will soon be corrected." Ben tensed. Realizing Mesogog was addressing them directly, he knew they were watching. The pretense of stealth had apparently been abandoned. "I know you're here, Rangers," Mesogog continued. "And you, Tennyson, with your technological mockery of true evolutionary potential. The Omnitrix Merrill, why mimics what the primal spirit creates authentically?" Ben's communicator activated, Gwen's voice urgent. "Ben, we've decoded more of the temple inscriptions. The spirit fragments are drawn to each other, they're trying to reconstitute. That's why Mesogog is collecting them, to force a complete reformation under his control." The tactical implications crystallized instantly. Which means Kira Abso. Our being a fragment has disrupted his collection. No wonder he triggered the alarms. He wants to draw her out. Precisely, came a new voice, feminine, clinical, and unsettlingly familiar. Ben spun to find a human woman standing behind him, slender, with short dark hair and calculating eyes. She wore a laboratory coat over tactical gear, a small device in her hand pointed directly at him. Dr. Haley Chen, Ben identified, recalling the quantum physicist from Plummer headquarters. I'm guessing you're not actually here to help us. On the contrary, she replied, her accent shifting subtly from American to something more refined. I am helping, just not your team. Mesogog and I share compatible visions for Earth's future. You're working with him, Ben realized. You had access to all our plans, our communications. Dimensional convergence creates wonderful opportunities, she confirmed. In my universe, I was already exploring the theoretical potential of reversion evolution. When Mesogog detected my research, he recognized a kindred scientific mind. Ben assessed his options. In Primosaurus form, he could easily overpower her physically, but the device she held gave him pause. T emitted an energy signature that resonated uncomfortably with the Omnitrix. That's a temporal disruptor, he identified. Designed to destabilize transformative technologies. Very good, Chen acknowledged with clinical appreciation. One pulse, and your Omnitrix will enter recursive recalibration for approximately 36 hours. More than enough time for our work to reach completion. Ben's mind raced through scenarios. If you're so confident in your plan, why reveal yourself now? Why not wait until we'd gathered all the information you needed? Because, Chen smiled thinly, we're about to make a rather destructive decision regarding our rift generator. And because the final phase has already begun. Mesogog has what he needs from this site. As if confirming her words, temporal rift began expanding dramatically, energy cascading outward in controlled waves. The biosauropod moved toward the excavated temple, its massive form surprisingly graceful as it positioned itself near the ancient structure. What is he doing? Ben demanded, calculating how quickly he could neutralize Chen without triggering the disruptor. Creating a feedback loop, she explained with academic detachment. The temple was built at a natural convergence point, a thin spot between dimensions. By positioning a genetically perfect specimen there while the rift is at maximum expansion, we create a calibration template. Understanding dawned with chilling clarity. A template for global transformation. You're using the Bio-Dino as a baseline for the environmental changes. Precisely, Chen confirmed. The temporal wave will propagate outward, modifying Earth's atmosphere, climate, and biochemical parameters to optimal conditions for advanced reptilian life. Mammals will find themselves increasingly uncomfortable. Quote, Ben tensed, preparing to strike despite the risk. Before he could move, however, a flash of purple energy struck Chen from behind, encasing her in a containment. Her aura felt wrong at headquarters. Gwen said, stepping from the undergrowth, hands glowing with anodite energy. Too clinical, too detached for someone supposedly concerned about parallel universe theory. Chen struggled briefly against the magical containment before going still, her expression calculating rather than defeated. You're too late. The calibration sequence has already initiated. As if confirming her words, the biosauropod positioned at the temple emitted a deep, resonant call that somehow echoed across dimensional boundaries. The temporal rift flared in response, its RGY pattern shifting from chaotic fluctuation to organized, concentric waves that began spreading outward. We need to disrupt that creature's connection to the rift, Ben decided, the Omnitrix Symbo. L on his chest pulsing with increasing urgency. It's acting as a biological anchor for the transformation wave. Gwen secured Chen with a more permanent binding spell before turning her attention to the expanding energy pattern. I can try to contain the wave temporarily, but something that powerful transcends conventional magical barriers. Ben studied the operation below, tactical assessment drawing on years of experience. We need to coordinate with Tommy and Kira. If her gem absorbed a spirit fragment, it might be able to counter the transformation wave. As they prepared to move, the Omnitrix symbol on Ben's chest flared with brilliant light, projecting a holographic display unlike anything he'd seen before. Complex energy patterns intertwined with DNA sequences and dimensional coordinates, forming what appeared to be a roadmap to controlling the primal spirit's power. The Omnitrix is responding to the spirit, Ben realized. It's showing us how to create a counter wave. Gwen examined the holographic pattern. It's a frequency modulation sequence, similar to what Kai found in the temple inscriptions. The spirit is trying to help us stop Mesogog. Ben activated his communicator. Everyone, converge on my position. I think the Primosaurus transformation has accessed knowledge about countering Mesogog's plan, but we'll need all of us working together. Kai raced through the underbrush. Tablet clutched firmly as she navigated toward Ben's coordinates. The temple ruins had revealed more than expected, not merely a monitoring station but a control node for the spirit's dimensional activities. The ancient civilization that built it had developed a symbiotic relationship with the spirit, helping direct its evolutionary influence while benefiting from its knowledge. Most critically, she'd discovered references to the Great Conjunction, a cyclical event where dimensional boundaries naturally thinned, allowing the spirit to move more freely between worlds. The current convergence wasn't merely Mesogog's doing, he was exploiting a natural cosmic phenomenon that occurred approximately every 65 million years. As she reached a small rise overlooking the operation, she found Ben in his Primosaurus form conferring urgently with Gwen. Nearby, Drive, Chen sat immobilized in a containment field, watching them with cold calculation. The temple INCR. Iptions confirm what the Omnitrix is showing, Kai announced, displaying her tablet's findings. The spirit exists simultaneously across multiple dimensions, using these conjunctions to guide evolutionary leaps. But it requires balanced vessels to maintain stability. Balanced vessels, Ben repeated. The spirit chose a specifically different abilities, different backgrounds, but complementary. Like a technological interface, a biological conduit, and a knowledge keeper, Gwen suggested, gesturing to Ben, Kira, and Kai respectively. Tommy and Kira arrived moments later, moving with impressive stealth despite the chaos unfolding below. Kira's gem now glowed with enhanced blue-gold light, evidence of the absorbed fragment. Mesogog knows we have one fragment, Tommy reported. He's accelerating his timeline. The transformation wave has already reached the outer perimeter of the excavation site. Kira stepped forward, her expression resolute. The fragment I absorbed showed me his full plan. He's not just trying to restore dinosaurs, he's attempting to claim the spirit's power for himself. The bio-dinos are prototypes for what he plans to become. Ben studied the holographic display still projecting from his Omnitrix symbol. The spirit is showing us a countermeasure, but it requires all three vessels to implement. Kira's fragment, my Primosaurus form, and Kai's knowledge of the temple's control functions. While Gwen and I keep Mesogog occupied, Tommy concluded. It could work. Ben turned to Kai. The temple control node, can you access it? She nodded confidently. The inscriptions included activation sequences. If I can reach the central chamber, I should be able to initiate a system that's been dormant for millennia. That chamber is directly beneath the biosauropod, Gwen pointed out. Getting there won't be easy. Ben considered their options, the tactical situation evolving rapidly as the transformation wave continued expanding. Below, Mesogog had gathered his remaining forces around the temporal rift, clearly preparing for the final phase of his plan. We need a diversion, he decided. Something significant enough to draw attention away from the temple. Tommy smiled grimly. I think I can manage that. He stepped back, raising his wrist where an ancient device still rested, his original Dino morpher. Though years had passed since he'd actively used it, the power remained, waiting to be called upon. Dino Thunder, power up. The familiar transformation sequence unfolded, energy enveloping Tommy and materializing his Black Ranger armor. The sight clearly startled Ben and Gwen, while Kira smiled with nostalgic appreciation. Show off, she commented, before raising her own morpher. Dino Thunder, power up. Yellow energy surrounded her, forming the distinctive armor of the Yellow Ranger, now enhanced by the spirit fragment's blue-gold light. That should definitely get their attention, Ben acknowledged, genuinely impressed. The plan crystallized quickly. Tommy and Kira would create a frontal diversion, drawing Mesogog's forces away from the temple. Gwen would use her anodite abilities to shield Kai as she accessed the control node. Ben, in Primosaurus form, would engage the biosauropod directly, preventing it from completing the calibration sequence. "We'll have one chance at this," Tommy warned. "Once Mesogog realizes our true objective, he'll commit everything to stopping us. Then we make it count," Ben replied, the Omnitrix symbol pulsing in agreement. The diversion proved spectacularly effective. Tommy and Kira, in full Ranger armor, launched a frontal assault on the rift generator that immediately drew Mesogog's attention. Tyrannodrones converged by the dozens, only to find themselves outmatched by Rangers operating at peak efficiency. "Your powers should have faded years ago, Oliver," Mesogog's amplified voice carried across the battlefield. "How disappointing to find you still clinging to relevance." Tommy dispatched 3 drones with fluid efficiency before responding. "And you should have remained extinct." Guests were both full of surprises. From her position near the temple entrance, Kai watched the conflict unfold while Gwen maintained a protective barrier around them. The transformation wave had changed the very air, making it heavier, more humid, rich with oxygen. N levels reminiscent of Earth's prehistoric atmosphere. "That barrier won't hold much longer," Kai noted, eyeing the deteriorating magical shield. "The wave is altering fundamental physical laws within its radius." Gwen nodded, strain evident in her expression. "Then we'd better hurry. The entrance should be approximately 20 meters ahead, beneath those overgrown steps." They advanced carefully, Gwen's shield deflecting smaller tyrannodrones that occasionally broke from the main battle. The ancient temple steps, partially excavated by Mesogownward into darkness undisturbed for millennia. "The control node should be in the central chamber," Kai explained, activating illumination panels on her tactical vest. According to the inscriptions, it was designed to realign the spirit's energy when dimensional boundaries fluctuated. The passageway narrowed as they descended, hieroglyphics covering every surface. Unlike conventional archaeological sites, these markings emitted a faint amber glow, responding to their presence. "The entire structure is sensitive to the spirit's energy," Kai observed with academic appreciation despite their circumstances. "It's not just a building, it's a technological interface disguised as primitive architecture." Above them, the ground shook violently as Ben engaged the biosauropod. In Primosaurus form, he possessed impressive strength and agility. But the sheer mass of his opponent presented significant challenges. Each thunderous impact sent dust and debris raining from the temple ceiling. "We need to hurry," Gwen urged. "That structure won't withstand much more stress." They reached the central chamber, a perfectly circular room dominated by a crystalline formation that rose from the floor like a natural stalagmite. Its surface featured indentations arranged in patterns that matched Kai's tablet references. "This is it," she confirmed, approaching the formation. "The control node. It's designed to amplify and direct the spirit's energy across dimensional boundaries." Quote, Gwen maintained her position at the chamber entrance, magical barriers flickering as the transformation wave intensified outside. "How do you activate it?" Kai studied the indentations, comparing them to her reference materials. "The sequence involves physical contact combined with specific tonal patterns. Essentially, a 3-dimensional password." She began pressing the indentations in precise sequence, simultaneously humming notes that resonated with the crystalline structure. With each correct combination, the formation's glow intensified, spreading to the surrounding hieroglyphics. "It's working," Gwen confirmed, sensing the energy shift. "The spirit is responding." Outside, Ben found himself locked in combat with a creature that defied conventional tactical approaches. The biosauropod combined a dinosaur's raw power with technological enhancements that countered his every advantage. Its neck extended with serpentine flexibility, jaws enhanced with metallic components snapping at him from unexpected angles. "Tennyson," Mesogog's voice carried across the battlefield as he approached, flanked by his most advanced biodinos. "Your interference is futile. The transformation has already begun." Ben dodged another strike from the massive creature, using his Primosaurus form's enhanced agility to maintain distance. "Funny thing about transformations," he called back, "I've got some experience with reversing unwanted ones." The Omnitrix symbol on his chest pulsed with increasing intensity, resonating with the temple below. Whatever Kai was doing with the control node was affecting the spirit's energy throughout the area. Mesogog noticed the change, his reptilian features contorting with rage. "No, the temple interface must remain dormant." He gestured sharply, and two bio-dinos broke away, charging toward the temple entrance where Gwen maintained her defensive position. Ben moved to intercept, but the sauropod blocked his path, its massive tail sweeping a devastating arc that forced him to dive aside. "Gwen," he shouted in warning. His cousin turned, hands raised as purple energy coalesced around her. Bio-dinos launched themselves at her barrier, claws enhanced with technology specifically designed to disrupt energy fields. Before they could impact, a yellow blur intercepted them, Kira in ranger form, moving with enhanced speed courtesy of her gem's connection to the spirit fragment. Her sonic scream, now amplified by the fragment's power, struck the creatures with precision, disrupting their neural systems and sending them crashing to the ground. "Keep going," she called to Kai. "Tommy and I have the perimeter." Inside the temple, Kai continued the activation sequence, the control node, now pulsing with brilliant amber light that spread throughout the structure. The hieroglyphics along every surface animated, depicting the spirit's journey across dimensions and time. Ben returned his attention to the biosauropod, recognizing that direct confrontation wouldn't succeed against such overwhelming mass. Instead, he needed to disrupt its connection to the transformation wave. The holographic display from his Omnitrix had shown that the creature served as a biological anchor, its genetic structure providing the template for the wave's effects. If he could alter that template, even temporarily, inspiration struck as he recalled his new form's capabilities. Primosaurus possessed not just physical strength but the ability to project evolutionary energy, the same power the spur. It used to influence development across time. Ben focused, channeling energy through the Omnitrix symbol on his chest. His spinal plates illuminated sequentially, building power until it reached critical concentration. When the sauropod lunged again, he released the energy in a controlled burst, striking precisely where biological tissue interfaced with technological components. The creature Roa, red in pain and confusion as its own evolutionary trajectory temporarily destabilized. The technological implants, designed to work with specific biological parameters, began malfunctioning as the creature's cells attempted to revert to their natural state. "No," Mesogog snarled, witnessing his creation's distress. The calibration. The transformation wave faltered, its concentric pattern developing irregularities as its anchor point destabilized. Ben pressed his advantage, projecting additional evolutionary pulses that further disrupted the biosauropod's hybrid nature. Below, the temple control node reached full activation under Kai's guidance. Amber light erupted from the structure, shooting skyward in a brilliant column that intersected with the transformation wave. Where they met, the energies struggled briefly before the wave began inverting, its expansion reversing, drawing back toward the temporal rift. "It's working," Gwen called, sensing the energy patterns shifting. "The spirit is reasserting control over its power." Mesogog abandoned his position by the rift generator, charging toward Ben with surprising speed for his bulky form. "You understand nothing of true evolutionary potential, Tennyson. The spirit's power belongs to those who can properly wield it." Ben stood his ground, the Omnitrix symbol pulsing in perfect synchronization with the temple's energy column. "That's where you're wrong, Mesogog. The spirit chose its vessels, and you're not one of them." As Mesogog launched himself forward, claws extended, the Omnitrix flared with brilliant light. Ben felt the transformation deeper than any previous experience, not merely his physical form changing, but his consciousness expanding to encompass aspects of the spirit itself. When the light faded, he stood in a form unlike any he'd previously accessed. Still fundamentally Primosaurus, but evolved, the spirit's energy fully integrated with the Omnitrix's transformative capabilities. Iridescent scales shifted with ambient light. Neural spines glowed with concentrated evolutionary potential, and the Omnitrix symbol at his chest projected a holographic shield of pure energy. Ultimate Primosaurus, Ben named himself. The knowledge somehow innate. Mesogog hesitated, sensing the power shift. "Impossible. The spirit cannot be contained by technological means." "It's not contained," Ben corrected. "It's collaborating. That's what you never understood. The spirit doesn't seek dominance but balance." He extended a hand, and evolutionary energy coalesced around it, not destructive but transformative. The same force that had guided life's development across countless worlds and dimensions. Lazan, Ben offered. Mesogog's response was predictable, a roar of defiance as he charged forward, using to abandon his vision of Earth's reptilian restoration. Ben released the concentrated evolutionary energy in a precisely controlled burst. It struck Mesogog directly, but instead of harming him, it began undoing the genetic modifications he'd performed on himself. His form fluctuated, scales receding as human features briefly emerged, the Dr. Anton Mercer personality he'd supposedly purged reasserting itself. No, Mesogog clutched his head, fighting the transformation. I eliminated the human weakness. Nothing human is weakness, Ben countered, maintaining the evolutionary pulse. He spirit-guided all Earth life, mammals included. Your vision of evolutionary perfection was always flawed. From the temple erupted a final surge of energy as Kai completed the control node's activation sequence. The amber column expanded, intersecting with the temporal rift and causing it to contract rapidly. The transformation wave reversed completely, healing the dimensional distortions it had created. Mesogog fell to his knees, his form continuing to fluctuate between reptilian and human aspects. The biosauropod collapsed nearby, its technological components failing as its biological systems reverted to natural parameters. Tommy and Kira joined Ben, their ranger armor gleaming in the ambient energy as they surrounded the defeated villain. It's over, Mesogog, Tommy stated. The spirit has rejected your interference. Mesogog looked up, hatred burning in eyes that shifted between reptilian slits and human pupils. This is merely one battle in an evolutionary war that spans eons, Oliver. The next conjunction will come, and with it, another opportunity. Before they could restrain him, Mesogog activated a device on his arm. His form destabilized completely, molecular structure dispersing in a swirl of energy that vanished into the collapsing temporal rift. He's escaped into the time stream, Tommy concluded grimly. To when? Kira questioned. Ben, still in ultimate Primosaurus form, sensed the spirit's knowledge flowing through him. Not when. Where? He's retreated to a parallel dimensional plane, one where reptilian evolution remained dominant. The temporal rift collapsed completely. The transformation wave fully neutralized. Around them, the jungle began returning to normal, ambient oxygen levels decreasing to modern parameters. Tyrannodrones and remaining bio-dinos collapsed as their sustaining energy dissipated. Kai and Gwen emerged from the temple, Kai clutching a small crystalline object that pulsed with familiar amber light. Another spirit fragment, she explained, holding it carefully. It was embedded in the control node. I think it wants to join with me, the way Kira's fragment did with her gem. Ben nodded, understanding flowing through his enhanced consciousness. The spirit is distributing itself among its chosen vessels, creating a balanced trinity that prevents any single entity from misusing its power. As if confirming his words, the fragment floated from Kai's hands, hovering before her momentarily before dissolving into particles of light that she instinctively inhaled. Her eyes glowed briefly with amber illumination as the fragment integrated with her being. I can feel it, she whispered, wonder overtaking scientific detachment. Knowledge. So much knowledge. The spirit has witnessed Earth's entire evolutionary history. Ben reverted to his human form, the Omnitrix recalibrating as the ultimate Primosaurus transformation dispersed. The device no longer pulsed with urgent energy but maintained a subtle, amber undertone to its traditional green glow. What happens now? Kira asked, her ranger armor dissolving as she powered down. Mesogog escaped, the dimensional boundaries are still merging, and each carry fragments of an ancient power that predates time itself. Tommy surveyed the devastated clearing thoughtfully. We continue what we've always done, protect our world, learn about the power we've been entrusted with, and prepare for whatever comes next. Ben nodded agreement, the tactician in him already calculating future scenarios. The Chronosapian Collective is still out there, Kelly planning their next attempt to correct Earth's evolution. And Mesogog will return eventually, possibly with allies from his new dimensional refuge. Then we'd better start preparing, Gwen suggested practically. Beginning with understanding exactly what these spirit fragments are capable of, and how our three vessels are meant to work together. As they gathered their equipment and prepared to depart, Ben found himself walking alongside Kai, who was still processing the spirit fragments integration. How does it feel? He asked, genuinely curious. Having a prehistoric consciousness sharing your thoughts. Kai considered the question seriously. Less intrusive than I expected. It's not controlling or directing. More like, offering perspective. Billions of years of watching life evolve across countless worlds tends to provide unique insights. Any insights on what we're supposed to do next? She smiled slightly. Actually, yes, the Amazon was just one convergence point. There are others, including one in Antarctica that appears particularly significant. The spirit seems concerned about what might be awakening there. Ben processed this information, the tactical implications immediately apparent. So our adventure continues. Did you expect anything else? Kai asked, a hint of the adventurous spirit that had first drawn them together flickering in her expression. Before Ben could respond, Kira joined them, her gem pulsing with renewed energy. Tommy's contacting plumber headquarters to arrange extraction. Thought you'd want to know that Dr. Chen Sum Hao escaped during the battle, likely using technology similar to what Mesogog employed. Great, Ben sighed. Another enemy with inside knowledge of our operations. On the bright side, Kira offered. My fragment is showing me how to track spirit energy across dimensional boundaries. If Chen or Mesogog attempts to harness another fragment, we'll know. The three of them stood together at the edge of the clearing. Each connected to the ancient power in different ways, technological, biological, and intellectual interfaces creating a balanced trinity exactly as the spirit had intended. Above them, the sky still showed subtle evidence of dimensional merging, stars slightly out of position, atmospheric colors minutely shifted from their normal spectrum. Two universes continued their gradual convergence, guided by forces older than time itself. Antarctica, Ben mused, already calculating what they would need for the expedition. I suppose it beats the jungle humidity. Kai chuckled. The spirit has a peculiar sense of environmental diversity. Next time, maybe it could choose a nice temperate location with comfortable accommodations. And fewer genetically engineered dinosaur hybrids, Kira added wryly. As they rejoined the others, Ben felt the Omnitrix pulse once, a subtle reminder of the responsibility they now shared. The primal spirit had chosen its vessels carefully, reading a team uniquely equipped to navigate the challenges ahead. Whatever awaited them in Antarctica, they would face it together, guided by power that had shaped life itself across countless worlds and dimensions. Chapter 2 End Chapter 3, Temporal Fault Lines. Antarctica's endless white expanse stretched beneath the Rust Bucket 3 as Ben guided the ship toward coordinates that seemed, to the untrained eye, indistinguishable from any other patch of ice on the continent. 3 days had passed since their confrontation with Mesogog in the Amazon, 3 days of preparation, research, and adjustment to the new reality of hosting fragments of a primordial force. Temperature outside is -47 Celsius, Ben announced, checking the environmental readouts. Winds gusting to 60 knots. Not exactly ideal expedition quantity from her tablet, where complex energy readings pulsed in rhythmic patterns. The spirit fragment she'd absorbed had transformed her already formidable intellect, granting access to knowledge spanning billions of years of evolution across multiple dimensions. The temple structure should provide shelter from the elements, assuming it's intact after 65 million years beneath the ice. My fragment is detecting significant energy concentrations directly below us, Kira added, her gem emitting subtle blue-gold light as it resonated with something far beneath the frozen surface. Whatever's down there, it's awakening, just like the Amazon site. In the 3 days since their previous encounter, their team had expanded. Tommy had returned to his RTH to coordinate with the remaining Dino Thunder Rangers, while Gwen remained at Plumber headquarters analyzing the convergence patterns with Dr. Astor, who had replaced the traitorous Drive Chen. In their place, Kevin Levin had joined the expedition, his matter absorption abilities potentially useful for navigating ice caverns. I'm still not clear why we're chasing down another potentially catastrophic energy source, Kevin commented from the co-pilot's seat, his perpetual skepticism a counterbalance to Ben's confident leadership. The spirit fragment we secured in the Amazon nearly triggered planetary-wide reptilian dominance. Because leaving it unattended would be worse, Ben replied, initiating the landing sequence as they approached a relatively flat expanse of ice. If Mesogog or the Chronosapiens reach it first, we're back to global transformation scenarios, only next time, we might not get advance warning. The rust bucket settled onto the ice with minimal disruption, its advanced stabilization systems compensating for the uneven surface. As the engines powered down, the ship's thermal shielding activated, creating a habitable bubble in the harsh Antarctic environment. Quote, "Plumber thermal suits are in the cargo bay," Ben instructed, rising from the pilot's seat. "They'll maintain core body temperature even in these conditions, but exposure time should still be minimized. We locate the entrance, establish a base camp inside the structure, then proceed with exploration." Kevin activated the ship's external sensors, scanning the ice beneath them. Detecting a hollow S-pace approximately 40 meters below our position. Looks like a chamber roughly 60 meters in diameter with multiple branching passages. That matches the temple configuration from the Amazon, Kai confirmed, overlaying the sensor readings with archaeological data. These structures follow consistent architectural patterns across all convergence points, like cosmic embassy buildings constructed to identical specifications. As they prepared their equipment, Ben's communicator chimed with an incoming transmission. Gwen's holographic image appeared above the device, her expression a mixture of concern and excitement. "We've identified a pattern in the dimensional convergence," she reported without preamble. "It's not random. The merging points are creating a specific geometric configuration across Earth's surface. When mapped three-dimensionally, they form what resembles a containment lattice." "Containment for what?" Ben asked, immediately grasping the tactical implications. "We're not certain," Gwen admitted. "But historical records from the Plummer archives mention similar patterns during previous extinction events, not just the dinosaurs, but earlier mass extinctions as well. Each convergence coincided with dramatic evolutionary leaps afterward. The spirit using catastrophic events as evolutionary catalysts," Kai theorized, her fragment-enhanced knowledge supplying connections. "Creating pressure that forces adaptation. There's something else," Gwen continued, her image flickering slightly with interference. "We've detected communications being transmitted out the convergence points, using the dimensional instabilities as a carrier wave. Someone is coordinating activities between our universes." "Mesogogue," Kira suggested, joining the conversation. "More sophisticated," Gwen replied. "The encryption uses quantum algorithms beyond even Galvan technology. And there's another concern. Elena Validus has been trying to contact you, Ben. She says her Nani-K research has detected the dimensional fluctuations on a microscopic scale." Ben exchanged glances with Kevin, both remembering their complicated history with Elena. "Is she still stable?" "After the nanochip incident, apparently. She's working at a private research facility in Geneva now. Claims she's developed technology that might help interface with the spirit fragments." Gwen's expression turned cautious. "She's already en route to your location. Said she'd meet you at the Antarctic site." "Of course she is," Kevin muttered. "Because this mission needed more complications." Ben considered this development. Elena's brilliant mind could indeed prove valuable, especially given her expertise in nanoscale technologies. But her previous obsession with him and the lingering effects of the nanochip influence made her an unpredictable ally at best. "We'll deal with Elena when she arrives," he decided pragmatically. "For now, let's focus on accessing the temple and securing Wielded. Our fragment waits inside before anyone else reaches it." As Gwen's transmission ended, the team completed their preparations. The Plummer thermal suits, sleek and minimally bulky despite their advanced insulation technology, would allow relatively unrestricted movement in the harsh conditions outside. "One more thing before we head out," Ben said, activating the Omnitrix. "I want to test how the spirit fragment is affecting my transformations in these conditions." The holographic selection interface appeared, displaying his roster of alien forms. Ben selected XLR8, a form whose speed might prove useful in their current situation. The familiar green flash enveloped him, but as in previous transformations since connecting with the spirit, his DNA reconfigured in unexpected ways. When the light faded, Ben stood in a form that combined XLR8's general structure with distinctly prehistoric elements: powerful raptor-like hind limbs, scaled skin with a feathered crest, and a long counterbala. NC-ing tail tipped with what appeared to be crystalline structures. The visor-like face shield remained, but now framed glowing amber eyes. "Velocipede," He named himself instinctively, voice carrying a sibilant quality. Kinesolaran DNA merged with something like a velociraptor, but more advanced. The spirit continues altering your transformations to incorporate prehistoric genetic templates, Kai observed, scanning the new form with scientific interest. This hybrid appears optimized for both speed and hunting capabilities. Ben tested his movement, discovering that this form could achieve velocities comparable to XLR-8 but with enhanced sensory perception and improved maneuverability on ice. After confirming the transformation's stability, he reverted to human form. The Omnitrix is adapting more quickly now, he noted. Each transformation feels more natural, less like a forced hybridization. Your fragment is integrating, Kira explained, her own experience providing insight. Mine did the same with my Dino gem, initially disruptive, then increasingly symbiotic. With equipment secured and environmental suits activated, the team disembarked from the rust bucket into Antarctica's brutal landscape. Wind-driven snow reduced visibility to mere meters, the perpetual twilight of Antarctic winter creating a ghostly atmosphere despite the afternoon hour. Sensors indicate heat chamber entrance should be approximately 30 meters in this direction, Kevin reported, consulting the handheld scanner that interfaced with the ship's more powerful systems. They moved in formation through the blinding conditions. Kevin in the lead with Ben and Kira flanking Kai, whose focus remained on the energy readings emanating from beneath the ice. The wind howled around them, rate the IR thermal protection with supernatural persistence. Stop, Kai commanded suddenly, raising her hand. We're directly above a thin section of the ice shelf. The temple's primary access point should be beneath us. Kevin knelt, removing his glove to press his bare hand against the ice. His skin immediately absorbed the frozen substance, transforming to match its crystalline structure. I can feel the hollow space below. The ice is approximately 4 meters thick at this point, significantly thinner than surrounding areas. Stand back, Ben instructed, activating the Omnitrix again. This time he selected Heat Blast, anticipating another prehistoric hybrid that might help them breach the ice efficiently. The transformation resulted in a form that combined pyronite features with what Appy read to be a theropod dinosaur-based structure. Molten magma coursed through fissures in obsidian-like scales, heat radiating in controlled waves that immediately began melting the surrounding snow. Magmassic, Ben identified this new form. Let's create an entrance. He focused thermal energy through his transformed hands, directing a precise beam at the ice beneath them. Steam erupted as the intense heat carved through the frozen layers, creating a spiraling tunnel that minimized structural instability in the surrounding ice. Efficient, Kevin commented, genuinely impressed as he followed behind. His ice-transformed body immune to the residual heat. Usually you'd just blast a giant hole and worry about consequences later. I've learned some restraint over the years, Ben replied, continuing to carve their descent path. Besides, collapsing an ice shelf on our heads doesn't seem like a great start to the expedition. As they descended through the melting tunnel, Kira's gem began pulsing with increasing intensity. Its blue-gold light illuminating the ice walls with ethereal patterns. We're getting close. The energy signature is almost identical to the Amazon fragment, but with a different resonance. The Amazon fragment embodied aquatic evolutionary aspects, Kai recalled, consulting both her research and the knowledge imparted by her own fragment. Given Antarctica's environment, this one might represent adaptation to extreme conditions, evolutionary paths that enable survival in hostile environments. The tunnel broke through into open space, revealing a massive chamber that defied logical explanation. Despite being buried beneath hundreds of feet of ice for millions of years, the space appeared pristine, its architecture combining megalithic stone construction with elements that seemed almost technological in nature. That's impossible, Kevin stated, voicing everyone's thoughts as they stared at the impossible structure. This place should be crushed under the weight of the ice, or at minimum, filled with it. Ben reverted to human form, conserving the Omnitrix's power as they examined their surroundings. Nothing about the spirit has conformed to conventional physics so far. Why start now? The chamber stretched nearly 60 meters across, its dome ceiling supported by columns inscribed with symbols matching those from the Amazon temple and Kai's Indonesian cave paintings. The floor featured an intricate mosaic depicting what appeared to be a cosmic map, stars and planets arranged in unfamiliar configurations, with lines of force connecting various points. Most striking, however, was the temperature. Despite being surrounded by Antarctic ice, the chamber maintained a comfortable warmth that allowed them to deactivate their thermal suit heating systems. "This place is generating its own environmental field," Kira observed, removing her hood as she scanned their surroundings. "Just like our command center back in Reefside, self-sustaining systems that operate indefinitely." Kai approached the central mosaic, her expression shifting between scientific curiosity and fragment-induced recognition. "This is a map of dimensional convergence points, not just on Earth, but across multiple planets. The Spirit has established these temples throughout the cosmos." Ben activated his communicator, attempting to establish contact with the rust bucket to report their discovery. The device emitted only static. "Communications blocked. We're on our own until we return to the surface." "Typical," Kevin muttered, absorbing material Fr. Own one of the stone columns to transform his body into the same substance. Ancient temples always interfere with modern technology. It's like a rule. As they ventured further into the chamber, ambient lighting activated. Not electric or flame-based, but bioluminescent patterns flowing through translucent crystalline veins embedded in the walls. The effect created shifting shadows and illuminatio, and that seemed to follow their movements with deliberate intention. "The structure is responsive," Kai noted with academic precision that barely contained her excitement. "It's registering our presence, specifically the spirit fragments we carry." At the chamber's center, elevated on a dais, stood a crystalline formation similar to the control node from the Amazon temple but significantly larger and more complex. Like the surrounding architecture, it showed no signs of degradation despite its age. "This isn't just a monitoring station," Kai realized as they approached the formation. "It's a nexus point, a location where multiple dimensions intersect naturally." The temples weren't built at these locations by coincidence, they were constructed to harness the inherent properties of cosmic thin spots. Ben studied the crystalline structure, noting how the Omnitrix reacted with subtle pulses of amber light as they drew closer. "So these temples are essentially dimensional embassies. Places where the spirit could move between universes. More like immigration control points," Kai corrected, running her fingers over the crystalline surface, which responded with increased luminescence. "The spirit used these locations to manage the flow of evolutionary influence between dimensions, ensuring balanced development across multiple worlds." Kira approached from the opposite side, her gem resonating visibly with the formation. "There's something inside this crystal matrix, another fragment, but it's dormant. Waiting for something." As if responding to her observation, the floor beneath them trembled slightly. The mosaic pattern began shifting, stars and planetary configurations rearranging themselves into new patterns that corresponded with current astronomical positions. "It's updating," Kai whispered in astonishment, synchronizing with present-day dimensional configurations. The trembling intensified, localized around the central dais. Sections of the floor retracted, revealing a spiral staircase descending into depths not detected by their initial scans. The bioluminescent lighting extended downward, inviting exploration. "Well, that's not ominous at all," Kevin commented sarcastically. "Secret staircase appearing right under our feet." "The temple is responding to our fragments," Ben observed, tactical assessment overriding any apprehension. "It recognizes us as authorized users. Or it's guiding us into a trap," Kevin countered. "We don't know if these structures were designed with human safety in mind." Kira's gem pulsed again, more insistently. "Whatever fragment is here, it's below us, calling to the ones we already carry." Ben considered their options, weighing potential risks against the certainty that leaving would allow others to claim whatever waited below. "Kai and I will investigate the lower level. Kevin, you and Kira secure this chamber and establish our base camp. If we don't return within 2 hours, contact Plumber headquarters through the rust bucket." Splitting up in a mysterious ancient temple, Kevin shook his head. "Have you learned nothing from horror movies?" "This isn't fiction, Kevin," Ben replied evenly. "It's tactical resource allocation. Kai's fragment gives her the most knowledge about these structures, and my transformations provide adaptive known situations. And when something inevitably goes wrong," Kevin pressed. Ben tapped the Omnitrix meaningfully. "Then I turn into something with enough firepower to create our own exit strategy." Kira approached, concern evident beneath her professional demeanor. My fragment is reacting strongly to whatever's down there. Be careful. These temples have defenses designed to protect the spirit components from unauthorized access. We'll proceed with caution, Kai assured her. Checking her equipment. The fragment I carry should identify us as authorized users, but additional security is always prudent. With the decision made, Ben and Kai began our descent into the temple's lower levels. The spiral staircase proved remarkably intact, its construction seemingly impervious to time and geological pressure. Bioluminescent light followed their progress, illuminating just enough steps ahead to guide without revealing the full extent of what awaited below. Your fragment, Ben began after they'd descended in silence for several minutes. What's it like, having that kind of knowledge suddenly accessible? Kai considered the question, her expression thoughtful in the shifting blue-green light. Imagine having a library containing the entire evolutionary history of multiple universes suddenly installed in your mind, but with an intelligent cataloging system that only presents relevant information when needed. It doesn't overwhelm because it filters itself according to context. Sounds more user-friendly than the Omnitrix was initially, Ben remarked with a half-smile. First time I transformed, I had no idea what any of my aliens could do. Learned through trial and error, mostly error. The spirit operates differently, Kai explained. It doesn't just dump information, it guides understanding. It's been doing this for billions of years across countless worlds. Evolution itself is essentially a refined teaching method from its perspective. The staircase finally ended, opening into a circular chamber significantly smaller than the one above but no less impressive. Unlike the astronomical focus of the upper level, this space was dedicated to biology, the walls covered with intricate depictions of evolutionary trees spanning multiple worlds and species. At the center stood a pedestal supporting what appeared to be a life-sized humanoid sculpture carved from translucent crystal. That's. Kai approached slowly, recognition dawning in her expression. An avatar vessel. The spirit mentioned them in the desert, humanoid forms it once used across multiple galaxies. Ben studied the crystalline figure with tactical wariness. Is it currently occupied, or is this an empty vessel? Empty, Kai confirmed after examining the sculpture more closely. But it once contained a fragment, specifically, the one we're seeking. These vessels allowed the spirit to interact directly with biological beings, teaching and guiding rather than merely influencing from a distance. Ben circled the pedestal, noting how the Omnitrix pulsed more strongly as he approached certain angles. So the spirit didn't just nudge evolution from afar, it sometimes took physical form to directly intervene. In critical evolutionary junctures, yes. Kai ran her fingers over inscriptions on the pedestal's base. According to these records, the last avatar manifestation on Earth occurred approximately 12 million years ago, coinciding with early hominid development. The implications hung between them momentarily, the possibility that humanity's evolutionary leap from other primates might have been directly guided by the spirit's intervention. That would explain a lot about human exceptionalism, Ben mused. Our unprecedented cognitive development compared to other species. And why the spirit chose human vessels for its fragments now, Kai added. Were literally designed to be compatible with its energy. As they examined the chamber further, the evolutionary diagrams on the walls began shifting, responding to their praises. NCE similarly to the astronomical map above. The biological sequences rearranged, highlighting specific evolutionary paths that culminated in imagery depicting the Omnitrix and what appeared to be Dino gems. It's showing us how it influenced the development of both our technologies, Kai observed with academic excitement. The Omnitrix and the Dino gems weren't independent developments, they're different expressions of the same fundamental concept, just evolved in parallel universes. The Omnitrix beeped suddenly, its interface activating without Ben's input. Holographic data streams projected from the device, interacting with the wall displays in complex patterns of information exchange. It's downloading, Ben realized, watching as new genetic sequences integrated into the Omnitrix database. Information about the avatar vessels and how they interfaced with biological hosts. Makes sense, Kai nodded. Your Omnitrix is the technological equivalent of what the avatars achieved biologically. The spirit is providing compatibility updates. The download continued for several minutes, the information transfer creating cascading light patterns throughout the chamber. When it finally completed, the Omnitrix recalibrated with a distinctive tone Ben hadn't heard before, deeper, more resonant than its standard activation sound. That was significant, he noted, examining the Devi. CE as its interface returned to normal configuration, though now with subtle amber undertones to its traditional green display. Whatever it downloaded, it fundamentally altered something in the Omnitrix's core programming. Kai turned her attention back to the crystal avatar, circling it with analytical focus. The fragment should be here, but I'm not detecting it within the vessel. It must be stored separately. As if responding to her observation, the avatar's crystalline form illuminated from within, eyes opening to reveal amber light. Though clearly unoccupied by any consciousness, the vessel appeared to be executing pre-programmed functions. Vessels recognized, it stated in a voice that seemed to bypass conventional sound, manifesting directly in their minds. Genetic compatibility confirmed. Temporal coordinates aligned. Authorization granted. The avatar raised one crystalline hand, gesturing toward the far wall, which shimmered before separating to reveal a concealed alcove. Within floated a shard similar to those they'd encountered previously but distinctive in its coloration. Not the aquatic blue of Kira's fragment or the amber of Kai's, but a glacial white with adds of iridescent color shifting throughout its structure. The adaptation fragment, Kai identified, knowledge flowing from her own fragment. Embodying evolutionary responses to extreme environments and catastrophic changes. It guides species through extinction-level events. Essentially evolution's emergency response system, Ben summarized, approaching the alcove cautiously. The genetic equivalent of disaster recovery. The fragment pulsed with increasing light as they neared, responding to both Kai's fragment and the Omnitrix's enhanced programming. Unlike previous fragments, which had immediately sought hosts upon liberation, this one maintained its position, seemingly evaluating them. It's waiting for something, Kai observed. A specific trigger or confirmation. Ben studied the fragment, tactical assessment considering potential outcomes. The previous fragments chose their vessels immediately. Kira's gem, your archaeological expertise. This one seems more selective. The adaptation fragment would naturally be more cautious, Kai theorized. Its purpose is survival through careful selection of advantageous traits. It's evaluating compatible hosts before committing. The avatar spoke again, its mental voice carrying formal precision. The adaptation fragment requires demonstrated compatibility. Survivability in extreme conditions must be verified before integration. A test, Ben concluded. Understanding immediately, it won't just adds proof they can handle its power. As if confirming his assessment, the chamber temperature began dropping rapidly. Environmental stability that had protected them from Antarctica's brutal conditions deliberately failing. Frost formed on the walls, their breath becoming visible in the rapidly cooling air. It's recreating exterior conditions, Kai realized, quickly reactivating her thermal suit's heating systems. Testing our adaptation capabilities. Ben nodded, already activating the Omnitrix. Let's show it what we've got. He selected Big Chill, anticipating the velocipede form might appear instead, given the environment. The transformation flash enveloped him, but rather than either expected form. His DNA reconfigured into something entirely new, a massive, heavily insulated reptilian form with layers of specialized blubber and scales designed for extreme cold environments. Cryolith, he named this new transformation. Instinctively understanding its capabilities, adapted for thriving in sub-zero environments. The avatar observed impassively as the temperature continued plummeting, well below the survival threshold for unprotected humans. Kai's thermal suit maintained her core temperature, but warning indicators showed the system approaching its operational limits. The test isn't just surviving, she realized. Watching frost patterns spread across the floor. It's adapting, finding solutions beyond technological protection. Ben's cryolith form moved with surprising grace despite its bulk. Internal biological systems generating heat that radiated outward in controlled waves. He positioned himself near Kai, creating a microclimate that supplemented her suit's failing heating system. The fragment wants to see cooperative adaptation, Ben theorized, his transformed voice rumbling through the freezing air. Not just individual survival but symbiotic solutions. Avatar's crystalline features remained impassive, but the fragment's pulsing increased in frequency, responding to their collaborative approach. The temperature stabilized, though well below freezing. as if acknowledging their initial success but requiring further demonstration. There's more to the test, Kai observed, teeth chattering slightly despite the protection. Environmental extremes are only one aspect of adaptation. As if confirming her assessment, the opposite wall shimmered, revealing what appeared to be a viewing portal into another time or dimension. Through it, they glimpse a volcanic landscape, superheated air distorting the view of lava flows and ash-filled skies. Adaptation across extremes, Ben understood immediately. From freezing to burning, the portal expanded, heat radiating through with physical presence. The chamber now contained two opposing environmental extremes, glacial cold from one side, volcanic heat from the other, creating an impossible gradient between them. It's testing our ability to navigate transitional environments, Kai realized, her fragment's knowledge providing insight. Mass extinctions often involve multiple catastrophic factors happening simultaneously. Ben's cryolith form was optimized for cold environments, its biology already struggling with the thermal gradient. I need to adapt again, he concluded, touching the Omnitrix symbol on his chest. Instead of reverting to human and selecting a new transformation, the Omnitrix responded differently, energy flowing through his current form, modifying it in real time. His physiology restructured, developing heat-resistant scales on the side facing the volcanic portal while maintaining cold-adapted features on the opposite side. The transformation became asymmetrical, specialized for navigating the extreme gradient. The Omnitrix is evolving, Ben realized, feeling his consciousness expand to encompass this new adaptive capability. Responding to environmental changes without complete transformation, like continuous microevolution. Kai studied his modified form with scientific fascination despite their dangerous circumstances. The spirit fragment is teaching the Omnitrix to mimic natural selection in accelerated time. That's revolutionary. The Avatar observed these developments with apparent approval, its amber eyes brightening. The adaptation fragment pulsed more rapidly, beginning to move from its alcove toward them. Adaptation verification completed, the Avatar announced. Compatibility confirmed. Integration authorized. The fragment accelerated suddenly, but instead of choosing either of them individually, it divided into two smaller components that simultaneously struck both Ben's Omnitrix and Kai's chest. Light enveloped them as the fragment integrated with the Omnitrix's core systems for Ben, and directly with Kai's biological structure as her previous fragment had done. Knowledge and power flowed through them both, evolutionary principles spanning billions of years, adaptation strategies developed across countless worlds, survival mechanisms refined through multiple extinction events. The fragment didn't merely provide information but enhanced their inherent capabilities for responding to change. When the integration completed, Ben returned to human form, though the Omnitrix now displayed a new hybrid interface combining its standard functions with crystalline structures resembling the Avatar vessel. Kai stood straighter, her eyes briefly flashing with the same iridescent patterns visible in the fragment before returning to normal. It chose both of us, she observed, surprise evident in her voice. A technological interface and a biological one simultaneously. Adaptive distribution, Ben theorized, meaning the Omnitrix's modified appearance. Maximizing compatibility by utilizing complementary vessels rather than a single point of integration. The Avatar lowered its hand, its pre-programmed function apparently completed. Adaptation fragment successfully distributed. Nexus synchronization initiated. Temporal alignment proceeding. The chamber shimmered, environmental extremes fading as normal conditions returned. The evolutionary diagrams on the walls stabilized, now highlighting connections between the distributed fragments and their vessels. Nexus synchronization, Kai repeated, her enhanced knowledge supplying context. The temples are linking, creating a network as the fragments find their vessels. Ben activated his communicator, finding the interference had vanished. Kevin, Kira, do you copy? We've secured the fragment, but something larger is happening with the temple network. We read you. Kira's voice came through clearly. The chamber up here is going crazy, the astronomical map is reconfiguring, showing connections forming between different points on Earth. And we've got company. Mesogog. Ben asked immediately. No, Kira replied, tension evident in her voice. A woman named Elena Validus arrived about 20 minutes ago. Says she's a friend of yours. Kevin's keeping an eye on her, but she's very insistent about needing to see you. Ben and Kai exchanged glances, both recalling Alina's complicated history. We're on our way up, Ben confirmed. Don't let her access any temple technology until we get there. They quickly retraced their path to the spiral staircase, ascending toward the main chamber with renewed urgency. The temple continued shifting around them, crystalline structures emerging from walls and reconfiguring into new pattern. As the Nexus synchronization progressed. What do you know about Elena Validus? Kai asked as they climbed, her tone carefully neutral. Ben considered how to summarize their complex history. Brilliant scientist, specializing in nanotechnology. We were friends as kids through the Plumbers Children program. A few years ago, she was infected by microscopic aliens called nanochips that influenced her behavior, made her obsessive. Especially toward me. She's supposedly recovered, but you're not entirely convinced, Kai finished for him. Let's just say I maintain healthy skepticism. About supposedly Refor replied diplomatically. Her expertise could be valuable, especially regarding how the spirit fragments interface at the microscopic level. But her timing is suspicious. They emerged into the main chamber to find a tense tableau. Kira stood near the central crystal formation, her stance casual but positioned for optimal response to potential threats. Kevin had absorbed the metallic components of their equipment, his transformed body gleaming dully in the bioluminescent light. Between them stood a woman in her early 20s with dark hair and intense eyes, wearing a specialized environmental suit clearly designed for scientific research. Ben. Alina's expression brightened immediately upon seeing him, genuine warmth mixing with something harder to define. You'd be investigating these energy signatures. My lab detected the nanoscale fluctuations 3 days ago. They're reconfiguring molecular structures across dimensional boundaries. Ben approached carefully, maintaining professional courtesy while assessing potential risks. Elena, your message said you've developed technology relevant to our situation. She nodded eagerly, removing a specialized case from her equipment pack. Nanite interfaces designed to bridge technological and biological systems. When I detected the dimensional convergence, I realized they could help stabilize the integration process. Her gaze shifted to the modified Omnitrix on his wrist, which appears to have already begun. We've encountered fragments of what we're calling the primal spirit, Ben explained, revealing minimal information while gauging her reactions. An entity that predates both our universes and influences evolutionary development. Alina's scientific focus immediately engaged, her expression shifting to analytical interest. That explains the nanoscale reconfiguration patterns. They resemble directed evolutionary acceleration, artificial selection at the molecular level. While they spoke, Kai moved to examine the astronomical map, which continued updating with new connection lines between global locations. Kira joined her, both women studying the emerging pattern with concerned expressions. The Nexus synchronization is creating a global network, Kai observed quietly. The temples are communicating with each other for the first time in millions of years. Is that good or bad? Kira asked pragmatically. Depends on who controls the network, Kai replied. In the spirit's original design, these temples regulated evolutionary flow between dimensions. If someone were to seize control of the network, they could potentially direct evolution according to their own agenda, Kira concluded grimly. Like Mesogog's reptilian dominance plan, but with interdimensional reach. Elena approached the central crystal formation with scientific curiosity, removing specialized scanning equipment from her pack. The molecular structure is fascinating, neither fully organic nor inorganic, but something that transcends conventional classification. Be careful, Ben cautioned, moving closer to monitor her activities. These structures are sensitive to certain energy signatures. Of course, Elena agreed readily, adjusting her scanner settings. I'm merely observing the nanoscale interactions. The crystalline matrices appear to function as information storage and transmission systems, basically biological computers operating at quantum efficiency levels. Her assessment matched what Kai's fragment-enhanced knowledge had provided, which slightly alleviated Ben's concerns about her intentions. Elena had always been brilliant, her scientific insights genuine even when her motivations were compromised. The nanite technology you mentioned, Ben redirected, focusing on practical applications. How exactly would it interface with the spirit fragments? Elena brightened at the opportunity to explain her research. My nanites are designed to create stable bridge between disparate systems, essentially universal translators at the molecular level. They could help regulate the energy flow between the fragments and their vessels, preventing potential compatibility issues. She opened her case, revealing vials of what appeared to be mercury-like fluid but with subtle iridescent patterns flowing through the substance. The nanites are programmable at the quantum level, adapting to the specific requirements of each interface. Kevin moved closer, his transformed body reflecting the bioluminescent light. And we're supposed to just trust that these microscopic robots won't try to take over our nervous systems or something equally catastrophic. Elena's expression tightened slightly at his skepticism. Each nanite contains multiple fail-safes and operational limitations. They're tools, not autonomous entities. Her gaze returned to Ben. I've learned from past mistakes. Everything is thoroughly documented and transparent. Before Ben could respond, the temple shuddered violently, not from internal reconfiguration but from an external impact that sent ice fragments cascading from the entrance tunnel. We've got company, Kevin announced, moving toward the entrance with practiced efficiency. Multiple heat signatures approaching from the surface. A second impact shook the structure, more powerful than the first. Dust and small fragments fell from the dome ceiling as the bioluminescent lighting fluctuated momentarily. Deliberate, Ben assessed immediately, activating the Omnitrix. Someone's trying to break through. Kira's gem pull said with warning energy as she assumed a defensive stance. My fragment is detecting technology similar to what Mesogog used in the Amazon, but there's something else, something not from my universe. The third impact breached the entrance tunnel, sending a cascade of ice and snow into the chamber. Through the newly widened opening descended a mechanical platform carrying several figures, Tyranitar. One's flanking a central form that radiated malevolent purpose despite its humanoid appearance. Vilgax, Ben identified grimly, recognizing his longtime adversary despite modifications to his usual appearance. The squid-like alien warlord had integrated what appeared to be dinosaur-based biomechanical components into his already formidable physiology. Tennyson, Vilgax acknowledged, his voice carrying the same menacing gravitas despite his altered form. Always interfering with forces beyond your comprehension. And you're always trying to steal power that doesn't belong to you, Ben countered. Cycling through transformation options. Some things never change, squid face. Vilgax stepped forward, biomechanical components whirring as they adjusted to the temple environment. On the contrary, everything changes. Evolution demands it. This power you've discovered, the primal spirit, represents the ultimate evolutionary catalyst. One that will finally allow me to transcend the limitations that have permitted your continued existence. Ben selected Diamondhead, anticipating a transformation that would combine crystalline properties with prehistoric elements, ideal for the enclosed space and multiple opponents. The green flash enveloped him, transforming his DNA into a hybrid form that featured Diamondhead's crystalline structure but with more organic integration, resembling fossil. IZED amber containing perfectly preserved prehistoric specimens. Amberlith, he named himself, crystal structures extending from his transformed arms to form defensive barriers. Let's see how your evolutionary upgrade handles extinction. Quote, Vilgax signaled, and the Tyrannodrones moved forward with mechanical precision, their design modified from what they'd encountered in the Amazon, suggesting collaboration between Vilgax and Mesogog. While fundamentally reptilian, these drones featured cybernetic components similar to Vilgax's usual technology. Defend the central crystal, Ben instructed the others. Tactical assessment determining priorities. It controls the Nexus synchronization. If Vilgax accesses it, he could potentially take control of the entire stepped forward without hesitation. Her gem flaring as she summoned her ranger transformation. Dino Thunder, power up. Yellow energy enveloped her, materializing the armored form she displayed in the Amazon, now enhanced with UE gold accents reflecting her integrated fragment. Fascinating, Elena murmured, observing the transformation with scientific interest despite the danger. Molecular reconfiguration through dimensional energy channeling. Less observation, more preparation, Kevin advised sharply, extending his metal-transformed arms into bladed weapons. Unless your nanites are combat-ready. Elena quickly secured her equipment. removing a smaller device from her belt. They're not weapons, but they can disrupt biomechanical systems at the molecular level. Might be effective against those hybrid creatures. The Tyrannodrones attacked in coordinated waves, their movements suggesting a hive mind tactical approach typical of Vilgax's enhanced servants. Ben's amberlith form proved ideal for the enclose. D-space. Crystalline projectiles striking with precision while amber-like barriers contained and redirected enemy movements. Kira demonstrated why the Power Rangers had successfully defended their ER/TH for years, her combat style blending acrobatic movements with devastating precision strikes enhanced by her suit's capabilities. Each Tyrannodrone that engaged her found itself systematically dismantled. She led through targeted attacks on joint servomotors and control nodes. Kevin and Kai formed an effective defensive perimeter around the central crystal, his transformed body absorbing and redirecting attacks while she applied knowledge from her fragments to identify and target vulnerabilities in the drone's hybrid construction. Elena, despite lacking combat training, contributed by deploying Nani-Te countermeasures that disrupted the cybernetic components controlling the Tyrannodrone's coordination. Where her nanites contacted their systems, the creatures briefly malfunctioned, creating exploitable gaps in their attack patterns. Throughout the battle, Vilgax remained at the chamber entrance, observing with calculating patience, a strategic approach uncharacteristic of his usually direct confrontational style. His modified form moved with deliberate precision as he analyzed the temple's structure and the defenders' capabilities. He's assessing, Ben realized, recognizing the tactical shift in his longtime adversary. This isn't his main attack, it's reconnaissance. As if confirming this assessment, Vilgax activated a device on his armor. The remaining Tyrannodrones immediately disengaged, retreating to form a defensive perimeter around their master. Your resistance is noted, Tennyson, Vilgax announced with unsettling calm. But ultimately irrelevant. The convergence proceeds regardless of this skirmish. We merely needed confirmation of certain parameters. Ben questioned, maintaining his defensive position despite the pause in direct conflict. Evolution requires collaboration. Vilgax replied cryptically. Even apex predators recognize the value of strategic alliances, temporarily. The temple shuddered again, but not from external attack. The astronomical map pulsed with brilliant light as new connection lines formed between global locations, the nexus synchronization accelerating despite the interruption. The network is stabilizing, Kai reported, studying the map's configurations. Antarctica, the Amazon, Indonesia, plus new connection points forming in Egypt, Siberia, and the Pacific Ocean. Vilgax's expression suggested this information confirmed his expectations. 6 nexus points forming a perfect geometric pattern around the planet, exactly as the ancient texts described. The spirit's containment lattice re-establishing itself after 65 million years. You know about the spirit, Ben realized, tactical assessment integrating this new information. This isn't opportunistic, you've been researching it specifically. For longer than you might imagine, Tennyson. Vilgax activated another control on his armor. The Chimerian hammer detected its energy signature decades ago, a power source that predates even celestial sapiens. I simply lacked the means to access it until recent, interdimensional developments. The temple trembled as energy surged through the crystalline structures embedded in its architecture. The Central formation pulsed with increasing frequency, responding to commands neither Ben nor his allies had initiated. He's accessing the nexus remotely, Kai warned, her fragment-enhanced knowledge recognizing the pattern. There must be another control point he's already secured. Egypt, Elena suggested, checking readings on her scanner. The energy fluctuations suggest an active connection form. With a location in the Sahara Desert. Ben moved to intercept Vilgax directly, but the warlord merely activated his teleportation technology, his form and the remaining Tyrannodrones dissolving INTO energy that transmitted through the temple's crystalline network. He's using the nexus connections to teleport, Kai realized. The temples aren't just monitoring stations, they're transportation hubs between convergence points. The energy surge stabilized, the temple returning to its previous state though with notably increased activity in the crystalline structures throughout. The astronomical map now displayed a completed network, 6 points connected in a perfect geometric pattern encircling the planet. We need to warn the others, Ben decided, reverting to human form as he activated his communicator. Vilgax is collaborating with Mesogog, and they've already secured at least one other nexus point. If they gain control of the temple network, they could potentially direct the dimensional convergence. Kai completed his thought, guiding evolution across multiple universes according to their specifications, which for Mesogog means reptilian dominance, and for Vilgax means. Kevin trailed off, unable to fully conceptualize the warlord's ultimate ambitions. Whatever it is, it won't be good for anyone but him, Ben concluded grimly. We need to secure the remaining nexus points before they do. Hera powered down from her ranger form, her gem still pulsing with active energy. If they're working together, we need to understand the nature of their alliance. Sogog and Vilgax have fundamentally different objectives. Temporarily aligned interests, Elena suggested, examining data from her scans. The nanoscale patterns suggest a convergence protocol that would initially satisfy both their objectives before ultimately favoring whoever controls the final integration phase. Ben studied the astronomical map, tactical mind already formulating response strategies. We can't defend all remaining nexus points simultaneously, not with our current resources. We need to identify which location they'll target next. Egypt is already compromised if our readings are correct, Kai noted. Examining the connection patterns, the Pacific and Siberian nexus points show the least stability in the current configuration. They'd be the logical next targets. We'll need to split up, Ben decided, the tactical necessity overriding his preference for unified operations. 2 teams, 2 locations. Elena approached, her expression earnest. My nanite interface technology could help secure the temples against unauthorized access. If properly calibrated to the spirit fragments, they could essentially create a biological firewall preventing Vilgax or Mesogog from commandeering the network. Ben studied her carefully, weighing legitimate scientific contribution against potential hidden agendas. The Elena he'd known had always been brilliant, her technologue. ICAL insights genuine even when influenced by external factors. The question remained whether her current assistance came with undisclosed complications. We'll incorporate your technology, he decided cautiously. But under supervised implementation. The spirit fragments are unlike anything you've encountered. Integration with biological systems follows principles that transcend conventional science. Elena nodded acceptance, though a flicker of something, disappointment, frustration, crossed her features momentarily. Of course, I anticipated collaborative calibration would be necessary. The Anites are designed for adaptive programming. The Pacific Nexus will likely be underwater, Kai observed, returning their focus to immediate planning. Probably on a seamount or submarine feature corresponding to the geometric pattern. I'll take that location, Ben decided, the Omnitrix providing multiple aquatic transformation options. Hera, your fragment has aquatic aspects, you should join me. Your ranger powers might function differently underwater, but the spirit connection should compensate. Hera nodded agreement. The fragment has been showing me capabilities I didn't know my gem possessed. Underwater operation shouldn't be a problem. Kevin, you and Kai head to Siberia, Ben continued. Your matter absorption abilities will help with extreme cold environments, and Kai's knowledge of the temple structures is essential for accessing the Nexus controls. And me? Elena questioned, gesturing to her equipment. The nanite interfaces will work at either location, but their implementation requires my expertise. Quote, Ben considered the strategic distribution of resources versus potential risk factors. You'll come with us to the Pacific location. The underwater environment presents unique challenges for technological integration that might benefit from your specific knowledge. The decision balanced operational requirements with prudent oversight, keeping Elena where he could directly monitor her activities while utilizing her legitimate expertise. Her expression suggested she recognized both aspects of his reasoning but accepted the assignment without protest. We should move quickly, Kai urged, checking the astronomical map one final time. The Nexus synchronization is accelerating. Once fully stabilized, the network will enter what my fragment identifies as convergence phase, the point where dimensional boundaries become permeable enough for directed evolutionary influence. How long? Ben asked, already activating communications to arrange transportation. Approximately 36 hours, Kai estimated. The final alignment depends on specific astronomical configurations that are approaching critical positioning. The temple shuddered again, not from attack but from internal reconfiguration as the Nexus continued integrating with the global network. Crystalline structures throughout the chamber grew more pronounced, energy flowing through them in complex patterns that suggested active information transmission. "It's communicating with the other temples," Elena observed, her scientific fascination temporarily overriding other concerns. "Exchanging evolutionary data accumulated over millions of years of separation. Which means Vilgax and Mesogog are potentially accessing that same information through whichever temples they've already secured," Ben pointed out grimly. "We need to move." As they gathered their equipment and prepared to depart, Kira approached Ben privately, her expression conveying professional concern beneath her typically composed exterior. "Your history with Elena," she began carefully. "Should I be concerned about potential complications?" Ben appreciated the direct approach. Kira consistently traded the practical assessment one would expect from someone accustomed to world-threatening situations. "Elena's brilliant, and her technology could prove invaluable. But her judgment has been compromised in the past by both technological influence and personal feelings. Consider her a qualified asset requiring supervision." Kira nodded, accepting the assessment without further questioning. Inger teams often incorporated allies with complicated backgrounds. "Trust but verify. I understand the protocol." Their gazes held momentarily, mutual respect establishing an unspoken understanding that transcended their relatively brief acquaintance. Ben found himself appreciating the straightforward competence Kira consistently demonstrated, a refreshing contrast to the convoluted motivations often surrounding his regular allies and adversaries. "The Pacific Nexus will present unique challenges," he noted, redirecting to tactical considerations. "Underwater operation limits conventional communication and potentially restricts certain powers. My Terra Scream actually functions more efficiently in denser mediums," Kira replied with quiet confidence. "Water amplifies sonic waves rather than diminishing them. And the fragment I carry has been showing me adaptations specifically designed for aquatic environments." Ben nodded approval, tactical assessment confirming their compatibility for the assignment. "Then we make a good team. Let's hope it's enough to secure the Nexus before Vilgax or Mesogog make their move." As the team finalized preparations and began their ascent to the surface, the temple continued its transformation, ancient systems awakening after millions of years of dormancy, preparing for a cosmic convergence with implications spanning multiple dimensions. Whatever Vilgax and Mesogog ultimately planned, the accelerating timeline left little margin for error. The primal spirit's power, Ben reflected as they emerged into Antarctica's brutal environment, had evolved across billions of years and countless worlds. Its fragments had chosen specific vessels for reasons only partially understood. As they divided into their assigned teams and departed for distant nexus points, one certainty remained: the evolutionary catalyst that had shaped life itself now depended on them to prevent its misuse. The temple entrance sealed behind them, ice reforming in patterns that concealed its location from casual observation. Within, crystalline structures continued their silent communication with counterparts around the globe, a network awakening after an evolutionary heartbeat of 65 million years. Chapter 3 End. The End. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.